The Senate will come to order. You can't do that. The Senate will rise, if you will, for the invocation to be delivered by Senator Birdwell. Senator Birdwell.
Members, please bow with me. Father, we humbly come before you, ask you for your wisdom, your grace, mercy, courage, that you pour your Spirit out upon our nation and our state. As the great physician, your hand of healing upon us spiritually and physically. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. Hua.
Amen. Thank you, Senator Birdwell. Members, we have a memorial resolution. The chair lays out the following resolution. The secretary will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 53 by Zaffarini. Whereas a full and generous life drew to a close with the passing of Lilia Solis Flores of Laredo on September 25, 2021 at the age of 89. And whereas the daughter of Jesus G. Solis and Cristina P. Solis, the former Lilia Solis was born in Alice. She grew up in Alice, Corpus Christi, and Hebronville. And she had 7 siblings, Baldomero, Hector, Irma, Acelia, Julia, Lily, and Emma. And whereas after graduating from Hebronville High School, she married her sweetheart, Margarito C. Marty Flores, and relocated to San Antonio, where he was stationed with the U.S. Air Force. The couple became the parents of 10 children: Robert, Michael, Margaret, Deborah, Linda, Peter, Patricia, Julia, and Joan and James. While raising her sons and daughters, Mrs. Flores also supported her husband in his military career, which took them to Japan and Spain, as well as California, North Dakota, and Laredo. And whereas Mrs. Flores eventually welcomed into her treasured family 13 grandchildren: Jennifer, Michael, Victor, Lilia, Javier, Christina, Victoria, Catherine, Erica, Juliana, Lisa, Joan, and Robert, as well as 13 great-grandchildren. She and her husband shared a fulfilling marriage until his passing. And whereas thoughtful and caring, Mrs. Flores always placed the needs of others above her own. She loved family gatherings and decorating for the holidays, and she also enjoyed reading novels, antiquing, shopping at flea markets, and going out to eat. And whereas although Lilia Flores will be deeply missed, the passage of time will never diminish the warmth and kindness that she brought into the lives of all who knew her. Now therefore be it resolved that the Senate of the 87th Texas Legislature, third call session, hereby pay tribute to the life of Lilia Solis Flores and extend sincere condolences to her loved ones. And be it further resolved that an official copy of this resolution be prepared for her family, and that when the Senate adjourns this day, it do so in memory of Lilia Flores.
The chair recognizes Senator Zaffarini on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President and members, Lilia Solis Flores was laid to rest today in Laredo. Were it not for this session, I would have been there to express my sympathy and to share in celebrating her legacy with her children, including my friends, James, Linda, and our own former colleague, Senator Pete Flores. She was a wonderful lady, and you heard our Secretary of the Senate talk about her 10 children, 13 grandchildren, 13 great-grandchildren. Such a beautiful and amazing and close-knit family. Everything they did together. And if there was anything they were known for in Laredo, it was their spirit of celebration, their spirit of family, their values, their morals, the way that they conducted themselves and served the community in so many different ways. Her family will miss her greatly because she truly was the matriarch of this loving, extended family. But she will live forever in the minds and hearts of all who knew and loved her. Madam President, I move adoption.
Would all those in favor of the resolution please rise? The resolution is adopted. Thank you, Senator Zaffarini.
Members, can we have our seats, please? For the following resolution, and if you're in the back and you're watching on the screen, wrapping up your lunch between meetings, please come out. Following resolution, Secretary, read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 39 by Huffman and Whitmire. Whereas the Senate of the State of Texas takes great pride in paying tribute to Senator Jane Nelson for her 28 years of pioneering leadership and exceptional service on behalf of Texas citizens. And whereas a widely respected and much beloved public leader, Jane Nelson enjoyed careers as an educator and a businesswoman before her election to the legislature to represent Senate District 12. She has served the constituents of the district's counties with integrity and dedication for 10 consecutive terms, and she is bringing to a close her distinguished tenure as the longest-serving Republican senator. And whereas Jane Nelson first began serving the citizens of Texas in 1988, when she was elected to serve as a member of the Texas State Board of Education. In 1992, she became the 10th woman and the 3rd Republican woman to be elected to the Texas Senate. 6 years later, Senator Nelson became the first Republican woman to chair a Senate standing committee when she was appointed chair of the Committee on Health Services. And in 2014, she became the first woman to chair the Senate Committee on Finance. She is ending her trailblazing career of legislative leadership after having written 4 state budgets. And whereas Senator Nelson's extensive list of legislative accomplishments includes establishing the Cancer Prevention and Research Institute of Texas, reforming medical liability, overhauling the foster care system, expanding access to mental health services, championing 30 pieces of legislation to combat sexual assault and domestic violence, and authoring and supporting numerous bills to the benefit of Texas teachers and students. She is held in high esteem by her colleagues for her professional expertise and bipartisan approach to policymaking, and she is well known for consistently honoring the accomplishments and celebratory milestones of her fellow legislators. And whereas Senator Nelson served as President pro tempore during the 78th interim, and she was governor for a day in 2004. She has been honored by such institutions as the American Medical Association, the American Cancer Society, the Texas Association of Business, and the Texas Council on Family Violence. And whereas she has skillfully managed the duties of a senator and has taken care of the needs of her constituents while continuing to be a source of strength to her large and loving family. She is a devoted wife to J. Michael Nelson, and she is a loving mother to their 5 children and a doting grandmother to their 12 grandchildren. And whereas Jane Nelson has been a trusted voice for her North Texas community and a tireless advocate for women, children, veterans, and the elderly in Texas, she has shaped policy that has ensured government efficiency while improving the lives of all Texans, and her proud legacy of service will continue to benefit citizens long into the future. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Senate of the State of Texas, 87th Legislature, 3rd Call Session, hereby honor Senator Jane Nelson for her many contributions to the state of Texas and for her outstanding service as a Texas Senator. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be prepared for her as an expression of high esteem from the Texas Senate.
Senator Huffman on the resolution.
Thank you very much. And I see Senator Nelson already weeping back here, so I'm going to try really hard to make it through this little speech I'm about to make. And you know, Senator Nelson, I have some notes, and I wanted to speak from the heart, which you know I will be, but I needed some notes. I thought that may help me not cry. So we've heard the resolution, members, and we all know so much what Senator Nelson has done for the state of Texas. Her accomplishments are I couldn't begin to name. I'm afraid to start naming because I'll probably leave out something that's important to you and important to your constituents. But I think what I associate with you most is your accomplishments in passing CPRIT. And I know you have told me that story so many times. I'm sure she shared the story with all of you. And you did that at great, a lot of political capital. It was hard and persistence and work. And look what it led to. You literally have affected the lives of millions of people. And I know you often say that when you retire, and you're not retiring now, but you're going to sit on the porch and rock, and that's what you'll tell your grandchildren, right, is the accomplishment of CPRIT. And then again, there's many more. I think about what you've done for mental health, which you know is a passion of mine as well, and children's mental health, which is something you've done more recently. And I watch as that is just developing through the state, and it's starting to be more funded. And that will be something in a decade. Most of us won't be here, some will, but we'll sit here and we'll think, that was Jane Nelson who did that. And it will make a real difference in the lives of thousands and thousands of Texans, children and their families, and how we cope with such an important and heartbreaking issue in our state. But it's because of your vision and your work. So you've done so many things for the state. Your beautiful family, of course, spoke of in the resolution. You know, Mike, she speaks of you all the time, all of her children, her grandchildren. Just today, a few minutes ago, she read me a text that she had received from Andrew, and it was just heartwarming, and she shared it. And I know many of you, all of you in here, have had the pleasure of sitting with Senator Nelson when she shared something personal about her family, and just something that made us connect with you. But as I think about your contributions to the Senate and what you've done, I think about your role as a mentor. Because I think we can all say, and I know you'd all agree with me, has Jane Nelson not sat down with you and helped you solve a problem or give you her wisdom or share an experience with her that has made you be able to do your job better? I think that's a sign of a fabulous senator, a fabulous person. I think back to my very first session. I didn't know anything about the legislature. I had never been in the legislature. I got lost in the Capitol every day. I'd have to text my staff, I don't know where I am. And they'd have to come find me. And I remember we went to the first Republican Senate caucus. It was at the Austin Club. I didn't know. I had tried to memorize the names of the senators by looking at their pictures. I literally did not know people. But you were there, and there was a cast of characters back then, including Troy Frazier and Dan Patrick. And I remember that Troy Frazier lit into Dan Patrick because of some antic, I'm sure it was a wonderful one, but something that you, something that he had done in the previous session. And it was, they were at each other, you know, and other people were yelling. And I'm sure you could see the look on my face. And you took me aside and you said, that's just Troy. He's just putting on a show. You know, it's just a bunch of chest thumping or something, right? And that's when you took me under your wing, because I was terrified. And honestly, I was terrified of you, you know, because you were so accomplished and so well respected. So over the years, as many of us have, I've watched you and I've learned, I've looked at your work ethic. You work so hard, and we could all learn from that. You're charming, you're smart, and you've made us all better. And you're also a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Some of the best times I've had is back here in this corner, just belly laughing, because usually it's something that Senator Whitmire said, right? And we have laughed about it so many times. I think about us walking the streets of London, Paris, Madrid, shopping. I wore this dress today in memory of our shopping trip in Italy, where you saw this dress in the window and you said, Huffman, you got to go in there and buy that dress. You're just a lot of fun. And as I said, we've all learned from you, and I'm thinking about things I've learned from you. so many things, but you've made me a better person, a better senator. You've been a wonderful friend. You've taught me just how to exist in this chamber. Some of the other things you've taught me, a lady never walks through a bar with a drink in her hand. And even when you're not here, I'm going to think of something, remember something you always say to me. And you said it to me yesterday. You looked at me and you said, "Put on your lipstick and keep smiling, darling." And I'll always remember that. Thank you.
Senator Whitmire, would you like to go next as the co-author of the resolution?
Thank you, Mr. President and members, and thank you, Senator Huffman. I will go a little further back just because I was here when Senator Nelson got here, and she had beaten one of Bob Bullock's lieutenants. Not very well received. And I was probably on the Bullock team, but I didn't have standing to bully, plus it's just not in my nature or DNA. But we were in the annex. After the fire, we went to the Clements building, and it was about a third of this size. So we were really on top of one another and spent a large number of hours with each other. So Senator Nelson got here after beating Bob Glasgow, so he was Bullock's lieutenant, so she was not very well received. And it was no secret that his team, Carl Parker and others, were planning on making her life miserable. So they attempted to bully her, but it didn't go very far. So the first thing you notice about Jane is she wasn't afraid of anybody in 1993, including Carl Parker. And she learned quickly payback will get you in trouble. She and Shapiro, who was also a freshman, voted against Bullock and John Montford's budget in 1993. The only two members in 93 to vote against the Senate budget. And you just didn't do that back in those days, and probably shouldn't even do it today. But that got everyone's attention, and I've got a name. Refreshment Classes was Greg Luna, Frank Madla, Jerry Patterson, Florence Shapiro, Dan Shelley, Jeff Wentworth, and Royce West. And only West will remain in that freshman class after Nelson's departure. Jane moved to her current seat in what became known as the Power Corner after she arrived when we moved back into the Capitol. So since 1995, she has literally made me a better senator. And I thank you, because most of what I say in this corner doesn't get on the official record. So thank you. Of all the instances I could revisit, the night of the filibuster, Wendy's, things were out of control, and she was trying to keep me under control. It was wild. But the one that I want to share, and I could literally filibuster my career with Jane. But 2001, in the last week of the session, I got a call from a very respected road contractor in Houston. He said, "I've never asked you for anything, but you've got to kill a local bill that will literally kill one of my road projects in Denton County." I said, "Well, just don't kill local bills." I said, "But whose is it?" He said, "Jane Nelson's." I said, "Oh, Lord." Sits next to me. It's tough. But in 2001, I was not as wise as I would be today. I would just get up and say, I can't do it. You just don't kill people's local bills. And I'm sure not going to kill Jane Nelson's and have to live with her the rest of my life. But I did it, and she got mad and had a right to be mad because her staff had not listed it on the general calendar. Sometime in the closing days, if you kill someone's local bill or something on the local calendar, if their staffs put it on the general, you can still pass that piece of legislation, but her new staff had not listed it on the general calendar. So she wouldn't speak to me in the closing days of the session, but on sine die, Radliff was our presiding officer. Everyone was in a pretty good mood. In 2001, one of my best friend, desk mate, was not treating me like, oh, she was quitting me. So I stood up on sine die, unrehearsed, without Laura's advice, and I just knew I had to do something. So I stood up in a good moment, said, Mr. President, I've got to fix something, and I don't know what in the Constitution or in the Senate rules I got to suspend. I want to suspend everything and pass Senator Nelson's bill prohibiting a rock quarry in Denton County. It took unanimous consent, and everyone went along, and we passed that bill, and things have been chummy ever since. And another lesson, I've said numerous times, if you need to be nice to every senator, because you never know, one, they might become lieutenant governor. But number two, you need to be nice to everyone, members, because they might become chairman of finance. Because in '93, if you'd have told me Jane Nelson was going to pass our budget this year, 31 to nothing, $281 billion budget, I would have not imagined that. And I still think that's probably one of the biggest accomplishments of this session. You brought us together. You include everyone. There's a real model there to include everyone and pass a piece of legislation 31 to nothing. But members, of all the work product and the leadership in the Senate that I could reflect on and tell you what a great job you've done, is watching you raise 5 children, 12 grandchildren. I think the grandchildren pretty much why you and I have been back here in this back corner. She has done an outstanding job and has an outstanding partner in Mike, but the 12 grandchildren I've watched raise. I got to know your father, Robert Gray, who was a World War II veteran. He has a Franklin Roosevelt keepsake. I think he was a Democrat until Jane married Mike. But I've got that keepsake, and I've tried to give it back to her. It was a little glass decanter that Roosevelt handed out in his campaign. I've got it in my office, and I've tried to give it back. I'm still going to give it to one of her grandkids if they'll appreciate a Democratic keepsake. But your 28 years in the Senate, I've watched Andrew, I've watched the family unit hold together. She watched my kids grow up on the Senate floor. So that is what's special. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It's the relationships that you make, the friends for life that you make, is what is so special to be in the state Senate. With that said, we will celebrate your career, your birthday, later today at your event, but you've really been a model for what a state senator, the growth, the bipartisanship, when you needed to reach out. Last night, it was amazing to have the patience with the folks that came, and every one of them were important, but you made it possible for them to have their testimony entered into the record. So, Mr. President, I'm proud to sign this resolution, sponsor it, but we will miss you. And also, I've got to go ahead and say, you've always been nice to me, but I don't know what you're going to do next. You're not going to retire with all your experience and knowledge and context. Whatever you're going to do next, and I don't think it'll be lobbying, but you'll be running some institution or something, but you're going to need the Senate, because I've noticed you're even getting nicer to me since you've left. So I can't wait to see how that plays out. But wherever you land, you know you'll always have an open door with all the members of the Senate and the leadership. So Thank you, Mr. President. Members.
Thank you, Senator Whitmire. There will be a great void to fill, of course, when she leaves. The biggest question will be who's going to sit next to you and keep you under control when she's gone. That will be the hardest challenge. Senator Zaffarini, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Don't tempt me. I might move over there just to make his life miserable.
And we have a motion on that, members.
Mr. President and members, it is my pleasure to rise to pay tribute to our friend Jane Nelson. I remember the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who wrote so long ago, "Nothing great has ever been accomplished without enthusiasm." And thinking back, Senator Nelson, to the day we met at the freshman orientation, when you were first elected and came in 1993, only Senator Whitmire, Senator Lucio, and I were here when you arrived. And you were so enthusiastic, so bubbly, so interested, so dynamic, so eager to learn. It's amazing that 28 years later, you still have that enthusiasm. You're still bubbly. You're still so interested in learning because you have learned so much, but truly are a lifelong learner. What's more, you are a lifelong teacher. Once a teacher, always a teacher. And that is the talent that you have shared with everyone who has served with you in the Texas Senate, not only to express and to demonstrate what you have learned, but to teach others, to show the way, to accomplish, to be better senators, to participate. And I have served with other chairs of Finance Committee and other committees, but you, Senator Nelson, have distinguished yourself as the chair of Finance. You have made people happy to vote for the budget, even when we hate parts of it. Even when we hate parts of it because people have been at the table, which is totally different from other processes at other times. You have truly been inclusive, and for that reason, we certainly appreciate your leadership. One of the things I most like about you is that you helped change the standard for how men and women behave in the Texas Senate. You expressed and demonstrated the standard that you are as good a wife and mother and later grandmother as you are a senator, and you hold men to the same standard. You helped set that standard. That wasn't the case many, many years ago, that the men of the Senate should also be good husbands, good sons, good fathers, and good grandfathers, depending on the definition of their family. That has been a total change in the Texas Senate over the years, and you are at the forefront of the movement to change that standard. Senator Nelson, we will miss you. We will miss your being president of the Grandparents Club, honorary president perhaps after you leave, and we will miss not only you but your family, your wonderful husband, your children, and your grandchildren. And you know, members, that every year I give everybody a cup for the session. She gets 6 for her family every year from the beginning, because what she wants for herself, she wants for her family. And what she wants for her family, she wants for your children and mine. Senator Nelson, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your example. Thank you for your friendship. I know you will always be as enthusiastic in everything you do as you have been in the Texas Senate. Truly, you will leave a legacy as perhaps the single most powerful member of the Senate ever. To quote Mike Haley, when you talk about power in the halls of the legislature, there is Jane Nelson, and then there is everybody else. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Zaffarini. And with your comment about moving over there, you're going to keep Whitmire up at nights until the next session. Senator Lucio, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, rise to join my colleagues to congratulate this lovely Texas lady. Oh, wow, where do you start? I was privileged to be here with the dean, our leader in the Senate, with our vice dean, Senator Zaffarini, to welcome this outstanding freshman class. That's what it's been, an outstanding freshman class, Senator West, and those that came in that year. I've watched you all just do great things. But the greatest thing that the Senate has done is come together as one Senate family, working as hard as we can for the people of our great state. You know, I will always remember you as Juanita La Bonita. For those of you who don't know, Senator Nelson's bilingual. She taught me Spanish. Remember, she's a teacher. We had some great conversations in Spanish in the lounge, and when we had a break in committee, we worked in so many committees together, and in finance, I had the pleasure, as Senator Hinojosa did, to sit next to you a couple of sessions now. I am very, very pleased that I've been able to listen to you and learn from you a little closer by than usual. It takes a lot of hours, a lot of hard work, a lot of preparation, an incredible commitment that you have made, and all of us had witnessed that. I think when I think of you, I think of, as Senator Safrini said, a very strong woman who doesn't mind to tell people how she feels. Probably nobody else will mention it here today, but you're against gambling. You know, that takes a lot of backbone to say no to gambling. Even though the majority of the people might want it, you have a sincere feeling about what might come about that in the future and how it would negatively affect the families of this state and all. And I understand. As a matter of fact, I was the only one that voted against the lottery in 1991. Not because, and I know you would have done the same thing, not because I didn't want the people of Texas to vote on it. It's just that we had promised that it would go, the proceeds would go to public education, and they did not, did they, Senator Nelson? So later on, you fixed that, didn't you? You carried the bill that ensured that those funds would go, whatever proceeds were left over would go to public education. There's so many accomplishments we could, and I'm urging you to write the book, because there's some wonderful things that we can learn from you still yet. We know you have a great husband, a great family, and Mike, I know that you're going to spend some time in the Valley because you have family there in Weslaco, Texas, and a great history. And I just want to let you both know today that you can come and put your feet in the ocean anytime in my district. I'll be there to bring you the towel so you can dry yourself. Seriously speaking, this is a great moment that allows us as your amigos and amigas to be able to stand, express our appreciation to the wonderful things that you have done for the people of our state, the opportunities that you brought that weren't seen when we first started way back in 91, 93. But I think your support of life is something that I have always looked into your eyes when we address those issues, and you respect everyone on this floor equally, and that's important. I know that because you've hugged everyone on this floor. I don't think you missed anybody. And that to me shows the kind of human being you are, a very warm person, a person that loves his fellow man and will continue to your last breath to make a difference to your family, your community, and most importantly, to God. Thank you, Jane Nelson. Juanita.
Thank you, Senator. Senator West.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. You know, at all of the members in this body, I go further back with Senator Nelson and Mike because all of us went to college together. So how far back we go. When I think about us coming into the legislature together, I've got to think about Florence Shapiro. I've got to think about Florence Shapiro and John Whitmire making Florence Shapiro cry. You remember that? You remember that, don't you, John? Yeah, those are fake tears, okay. But I'm also reminded of you coming in and the whole class coming in, and you having to resolve to vote against the budget. It took a lot of resolve, or a lot of stupidity. Which one was it? It was resolve, when we know it was resolve. And only to become first woman in the history of the state of Texas, I believe, to be the chair of the Finance Committee. You've presided over 4 budgets now. We're able to bring people together on both sides of the aisle in order to get it done. You chaired Health and Human Services, 14 years. And I'm reminded of all of the things that you have done for the mental health community and to deal with mental health issues in the state of Texas. Making certain that the resources got there and they were deployed correctly, it will benefit generations yet unborn. And Senator Zaffarini is correct. Once a teacher, always a teacher. When we talked about issues of education, you were right there. Let's talk about the fun side. Let's talk about some R&B, okay? Tonight, everything goes on video, even though we're not supposed to have cameras. Now, and I do have something, though, that I want to share with everyone. You recall Senator Nelson having a picture, Senator Johnson, of this buff guy who played football way back when. And then all of a sudden, we started getting a bunch of pictures of athletes, Senator Creighton, you remember? And she had a little poster board up. But notice, she never had her picture up there, right? Well, guess what I have today? That's right. I have not only a picture, no, I don't have the hot pants, what? Okay. Not only the hot, I don't have the hot pants, but I have a couple of pictures that ultimately I'm going to share with the entire Senate on a poster board. I have a picture of Senator Nelson when she was 7 years old as a little cheerleader. I'm not, a little research, just a little research. You were twirling, exactly, okay? As a twirler, you see that, Senator Nelson? Nichols? I have a picture of her also when she was a senior in high school, twirling. And I think you were you won a national competition twirling. I'm a lawyer, ma'am. I do research, okay? All right? You don't know what else I have either, okay? I won't bring that up today. But I want to make certain that all of you see this picture of our friend, our colleague, Jane Nelson, as she was growing up. And she was competitive at the age of 7. Won a national championship in twirling at age 16 or 17 years old. 15, oh, excuse me, at 15 years old, national championship. Jane, as your classmate, as your friend, you are leaving the Senate as an official member, but you'll always be a member of this body. You'll always have a cup of coffee at my office, and hopefully you will continue to take my telephone calls. Okay? Because you have a great deal of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of this body that, just as Senator Huffman mentioned a few moments ago, that some of the members that have just got here in the last 4 or 5 years, some of us have been here for 20-something years, that wisdom and knowledge will benefit us as we continue to represent our constituents here in this body. I look forward to some temptations tonight, all right? And a few dances up here. Mike, job well done. And one thing I want to make certain that y'all continue to do as a family, every year you would always have a picture of your family, and you'd send out Christmas cards, right? And the family continued to grow and grow and grow and grow. I look forward to getting that Christmas card in the years to come, because that's one, as with all of the members of the Senate, that I always have treasured to look at, because it's the epitome of a woman that knows that family comes first, still able to make certain that that's taken care of, and do all of the other things that you've done. God has blessed you, and God is going to keep you.
Senator West, I'm trying to do this in the dates of service. I may not get all these exactly right as we go through. We knew the members who were here in the beginning. Senator Hinojosa, I believe you're next up in your time with Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Everything that's been said about you is true, about you being a leader, a mentor, and a friend to all of us. You always talk about your grandchildren. You talk about your family. And I didn't know when you were a cheerleader, but I've seen the pictures of you being a cheerleader. They're amazing pictures. But I also served as his vice chair for 3 sessions, and you really were a very fair person, very focused, very disciplined, and you treated everyone the same, with dignity and respect. And it did make a difference whether you were a Republican or Democrat. You would listen to the needs of our districts, and that's important. You will help us and assist us and try to identify the funds to make sure that we took care of the priorities that were important to us. But I do remember when you were in finance, and I was in finance before you were chair, and you were carrying a Senate resolution to get the voters to approve $6 billion for cancer research, CIPRIT. And the chairman at that time was Steve Hodgkin, and he was not too supportive of that resolution, and you didn't have the votes. So I remember he came and talked to me if I would vote for it. And I said, I will vote for it, and I'll help you get votes. And you wouldn't give up because initially the votes were not there. And she persuaded every member of the Finance Committee to support your resolution, and now we have CIPRIT, cancer research that is helping many people address and try to find ways to conquer cancer. I will always remember that because anytime we mention CIPRIT or mention cancer or a new way of treating cancer and the death rate continues to decline, I remember your work, your leadership. And then when you became chair, and I was your vice chair, I really admired the way you were so patient with senators, like Senator Whitmire, that kept interrupting you when you were trying to run the committee. I remember you putting up and allowing Senator West to continue asking questions after question after question after question. And you smiled in there and continued just being very patient. That is really it's so important, and your patience that you had. And it made you a great chair of finance. Because one of the things you did, you would always smile. And you're right, Senator Huffman, she always has a smile, even when they criticize or try to take you on. I know, and I've seen that. And I still remember one night when we were in conference committee, working late that night, trying to do the budget with the House. And I won't mention any names, but somebody walked in and opened the door and said, I want to see you now. And yet, you dealt with very difficult issues, very complex issues, but you did it with class and with knowledge. Right? And to me, I consider you a mentor, a friend, and a leader. I know your whole family, Mike. I mean, she talks about family all the time, her grandkids. I mean, she's so happy. It's really amazing that she radiates love and being positive. You never see her down, even when we're in finance on meeting some of the challenges and trying to put a budget together. And so everything is correct. Even though we did not like certain parts of the budget, we would vote for the budget, all 31 senators, because of her leadership, because of who she was, and the way she treated all of us with such dignity and respect, and for that I'm very grateful. We will miss your leadership here in the Senate. And I know that you are only retiring from the Senate because you have so much to give. You have so much experience, so much knowledge that you'll continue making a contribution to our state. And I agree, Senator West, I hope you keep sending out those Christmas cards every year because the family continues to expand and grow. And that's good. Thank you, my friend, and I love you.
Thank you, Senator Hinojosa. And that wasn't me that opened that door. I know better. Senator Nichols, I want to get that on the record. Senator Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have not known you as long as the previous 5. I've only known you for 24 years. The first time I met you, of course, was when I was getting appointed to the Textile Commission. And just to be safe, I made sure I made the rounds and tried to visit with every senator, scared to death. You don't know who's who, like Joan was talking about. And I found in that meeting that you were very inquisitive. You asked a lot of questions and talked about a lot of the problems that needed to be worked on. But it was not until I got in the Senate. Oh, shortly thereafter, after the session was over, you invited me to go up to your district and that area. You wanted me to speak to some of your constituents, their delegation, on the north, to me it was on the northwest side of Dallas, at about 5:30. Knowing I would have to drive all the way through the Metroplex at 5 o'clock traffic, which you can't do. And when I mentioned it, you said, and that's why I wanted you here at 5:30. And that was the whole purpose of me coming up there, is to show me. So that's when I found out you had a sense of humor. When I got in the Senate, I asked to be on Health and Human Services, and you were chairing it. I think I served on that somewhere around 6 or 8 years. And that's when I really got to know you so much better, and the way you work, and the way that you have that unique leadership ability to not make people work, but make people want to work. We so much wanted to please you, and that is a rare talent, to dig in more, come up with a better answer. Surely there's a better way, and you had inspired all of us to do that. And so in the work that I saw on that committee, and we would meet right there, and Joan Huffman said it right, you have touched and improved the lives of millions of people, old and young, from the actions and the work that you did, just that committee alone, let alone so many of the other things that you have done. But my freshman year, when you get to choose your first desk, this one was available. I really wasn't even thinking, yes, she's doing what I was fixing to say. And ever since I've been in the Senate, I've been in front of her getting those thumps. When it was thump, thump, before you make a decision on that one, let me tell you something. and it's been fun. And she's very conservative, and I know y'all know that, but we got to comparing our no's, and there was a young senator named Dan Patrick, I think, on the same row. I'm trying to remember who was on the front. Glenn Hager, who's now our comptroller. We were all so we started comparing our no's, and we could kill just about anything from this row. So we were known as the no row. You need something killed, you come to our row, and that's what we've had a lot of fun with that. But I've enjoyed working with you on so much stuff, and the first one was Health and Human Service. But when I came, I did not want to get on finance until you became chairman. For several sessions, I was asked by some people to get on finance, and I didn't like the way it was run, frankly, but I knew how you worked. So when you went to chair finance, I wanted to go to finance, and I was asked to go to finance, and because I knew that you would get the best out of everybody on that committee, and you did. You're also quite fun. Mike, when complicated issues come up, your name pops up quite a bit. It's a problem solver. And she was concerned when y'all sold the business, what your next project was going to be. So we constantly were getting updates on the land and the pond and the fish and all these kind of things. I know it's been said several times about your family, but she always talks about y'all. The kids, the grandkids, baby pictures. She loves baby pictures. And so thank you very much for everything that you've done for us, this body, this state. We love you.
Thank you. And Senator Seliger, I didn't see your light, or I would have taken you before Senator Nichols. You're next up in seniority.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. It has been... You might want to wait to hug him. You don't know what I'm going to say yet. It's been a great pleasure to serve with you for 18 years. And it's interesting thinking back. One of the recurrent themes and one of the things that you have been very intent upon is that this body over its history has developed a tradition of respectfulness and vision to serve the entire state of Texas and all the people. You've been very insistent that this should be a body that deserves the honors that are heaped upon it, sometimes by people who don't know what goes on here. There ought to be an exemplary body for bodies like it all over the country and people of the state of Texas. You've been very insistent on that all along. I think in some ways that it was a momentous occasion historically when you became the first woman to chair finance, but your being there demonstrated something far more than that. You were preceded by a certified public accountant and a nuclear submariner, and what you proved is gender and experience mean nothing. What matters is competence and vision and hard work and the ability to work with other people. That's what you brought. It has been a very great honor to be here and to have served on your committee, and you have made a difference by being here. We have some portraits, I think, that probably come down and be replaced by one of yours. It's been a great honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Birdwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to be inadequate to all the other comments that have been made, Madam Queen of the Caucus. I remember Senator Nichols was talking about the no row, and when I first came in, I was getting thumped by him because I sat where Senator Pat. So that it was a trickle-down thumping that was occurring in the no row. With your departure, there's going to be a big hole over there in the chamber where you sit. Many times I've sought your wisdom and your counsel, particularly as a baby senator and, maneuvering on the battlefield and making sure that you pick your fights carefully. But most of all, you taught all of us that if somebody picks one with you, don't ever back up. There were chairs that you chaired or committees that you chaired that I sat on with you. Sunset in 13-14, I think it was. And then 2 sessions on finance. I sought your counsel when I asked to be the Sunset Chair going into the 19 session. You'd also chaired nominations. I sought your counsel when I began chairing nominations as the first committee that I chaired. What I'm trying to tell the body here is that it isn't just the collegial things that I'm going to remember you for, but it's that wisdom, counsel. Solomon says in Proverbs, many counselors make for wise decisions, but you're always the first person I came to for counsel. So with your departure, there'll be a big hole in that part of the chamber, and then certainly in the Republican caucus, and that whomever the district chooses to replace you, that hole will never be filled. So just know how special you are. You know, when I first met you in 06 and then in 07, and you're certainly a part of the reason that I'm sitting in this chamber, and I'll be forever indebted to you for that. God bless you, ma'am, and your endeavors, whatever you choose to do in the future. Hua. Thank you, ma'am.
Senator Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Dean Whitmire and Chairwoman Huffman, for bringing this resolution forward for the Honorable Chairwoman Jane Nelson. Well, Chairwoman, you have, I've noticed, a firm grip on the gavel, but a light touch with interactions. You stand in defense of what's right, and you're immovable. Literally came over and stood with me as I defended the take your gun to the hotel bill. And thank you for that demonstration of strength and support. You always have a great smile on your face and a lot of love in your heart, love for your colleagues, Texans. But what shows the most is the love of your husband, your children, and your grandchildren. And that shine, that ebullient personality that we see also reflects the Holy Spirit in you and the love that you have. You were actually the first Texas senator I ever met. Didn't know much about politics. And I met you in a bathroom, believe it or not, of all places. So, and I would have never thought I would get to know you as I've gotten the honor to know you here. You have shared great wisdom with me and given me solid advice. And that's something I take with me forever. You are the perfect role model for me and for many others. And the best thing is that you are truly a witness for our Lord. Thank you for the legacy that you've left Texas. Thank you for what you've imparted into me. God bless you in your next adventure. Not sure what that'll be, but it will be blessed. And happy birthday. We love you.
Senator Hancock.
Thank you, Mr. President, my friend, my senator, something I get to say that no one else does. As a school board member, as a House member, you were my senator, the one we looked up to, the one that when walked into a room in our community, everyone wanted to make sure that they spoke with Senator Nelson. You had that air about you. You, Senator Huffman, you talk about a mentor. I literally grew up in the shadows. The district I serve today, as we honored her at a recent event, and Mike was able to join, were mostly, I'd say 90% of that room were your constituents at one point and another. And in fact, the thing that I remember most of when I decided to run for the Senate, the governor had talked to me, and that was nice and impressive. But really what got me was the phone call I got from Senator Nelson as a House member, which you don't get as a House member, that said, hey, come over here. And she had a chair by her desk and asked me to sit down and encouraged me to run for the Senate. And so it was it's today, one of my special moments was that phone call I got from Senator Nelson. You meant that much to our community. The many years that I served in that area. You are a friend. As I've been saying, you are a confidant. When those tough decisions came, there was someone, you might call others, but you, on the big, tough ones, gravitated to Senator Nelson on that. And so I want to thank you for that, for years of service. And in this grandiose state that we live in, I mean, there's a ton of history here. It's a phenomenal history of difficult times, of a difficult land, with great people who rose up to challenges in a very difficult environment. That's why people love stories of Texas. And Senator Nelson, you have made your mark in a historic state at a historic time in historic ways that will be talked about for generations. The legacies that you've established, the barriers that you've broken. You've set a standard that will be impossible, as was mentioned by Senator Birdwell. Yeah, there may be another senator from Senate District 12, but no one will achieve the achievements that you have because you broke those barriers. You established yourself in a unique way. And as we look at people, many people would look at Senator Nelson and sit there and say, well, she has it all. She has the Senate, she has this family, she has her faith. But what she's shown me is that Senator Nelson doesn't have it all. Senator Nelson gives it all. She gives all she has to this place and this body. She's taught me how to respect and love the process and the individuals involved in that process. As we can find out, she gives it all to her family. She gives it all to her friends. And so, again, we hear that statement a lot. Senator Nelson, we look at you, and many would say, she has it all. And indeed, you do. But that's only because you've given your all to every task, be it senator, be it wife, be it mother, most importantly, be it grandmother. And so we thank you for your service. We thank you for your gift to this state. It's a different place because of you, a better place because of you. Thank you.
Senator Betancourt.
Madam Chair, one last time, I want to thank you, first off, for putting up with freshmen that ask way too many questions on the Finance Committee. But that was the way to learn, okay? But I want to go back even further and credit Mike. Mike, you married up. Congratulations, okay? But of course he would, because he's a roboticist and an automation guy like I am. And we were smart enough to not only find the loves of our lives, but find somebody with a logical and organized conservative mind. Because that's what's there. Always has been and always will be. Now to the next generation of Nelsons, you all need to keep improving that large picture of ever improving population of Nelson grandchildren, because I'm convinced after the redistricting bill that we have, we're going to need all of them we can get up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And Mike, before I forget, I think it was Senator Nichols that mentioned that we hear a lot about the lake and the updates. The only complaint we've heard is that your fish feeders are just They're too, I guess they're too generous to the fish and therefore cost too much, okay? But that's the only complaint I've heard. I've only, known Jane for about 6 years. So if that's what you've got as your only complaint, you're scot-free. Your trips to Europe are somewhat legendary. I hear that everywhere between Italy and maybe Portugal, there's not been should I say, an entertainment venue not visited, okay? And I'm sure we were checking out the tax rates on various local alcoholic beverages, because it got to the point where I know that you all made it to Portugal, because I got a picture from Senator Huffman about the Betancourt Shopping Center arcade and I assume bar, but I didn't know about the last one. And when I hear all of these, because your leadership, it really is based upon the wisdom of many counselors, but also on knowing where to direct them. The tribute I have for you is that in the COVID year, we were on conference call after conference call. It was very grim because we started off with an economy that was in a nosedive. And it was so grim that even Whitmire was actually listening on the phone calls, okay, and paying attention, okay, because we went to a point where we were down $10 billion, and then we were down $20 billion, and it looked really grim at that point. Well, this logical, organized mind doesn't panic. She just lays it out and says, here's where we're at. And as that V-shaped curve, we started coming back up the other end, Senator West, because I know he was on all those calls too. It was a real demonstration of leadership under fire that the public will never hear a lot about, but it could have been a much different state of Texas. But you didn't waver. You didn't back up from what the issue was going to be, because we could have had to make some really serious decisions. But you told everybody on the team, the finance committee, what was happening, and we plowed through it. Now, tonight, because as a freshman who's experienced this party, I'm going to really encourage, okay, she knows where I'm going with this. I'm going to really encourage the freshmen here, okay, to bring your cell phone, okay, and use it in front of her chairmaness's, right eyeballs, okay, because she has a unique solution of where she will hide that, take it from you and hide it, okay. Something to the effect of bait and switch, but I don't really want to say it publicly, okay, because she took a young freshman's phone and hid it, but I thought, and then she went back in and grabbed another phone out. I didn't realize later it was like left pocket, right pocket, but gentlemen, you have to think higher than that. But she grabbed it out and threw it on the ground and trashed it. And I'm going, wow, what an initiation to the Texas Senate. I later realized that it was a dummy, throw down. But I suspect the look on my face was priceless. Okay. I will remember that. So I wish you Godspeed, because I know the logical, organized, conservative mind is not going to stop. I don't know what you're going to tackle, but you're going to do a fantastic job, as you've done here. And with that, bon voyage to wherever you and Senator Huffman go to the next arcade in Europe.
Senator Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise with my colleagues today to support this resolution on behalf of our friend, Jane Nelson. Her tenure, as you know, has been filled with working to pass many monumental pieces of legislation. I think CPRA has already been mentioned, but making sure we had the funding to pass major education reforms in House Bill 3, and then coming back this past session and fulfilling those funding things that we had set out, property tax cuts, continue on the road to reforming our public education system. She was there to make sure that happened with strong commitment. But I can tell you one thing I know about Jane Nelson. From hearing the stories back to college and all those sorority days and all that, she has not changed. This Senate and her tenure here has not changed Jane Nelson. She's still a strong conservative, but she's still also a great social leader. She's a firm believer in work hard, play hard. And I'm with you on that, Jane. She is no doubt a great leader among leaders. On a personal level, she has been my friend. She's been my mentor, and yes, my confidant. She shared her experience and wisdom with me, as well as many of others on this floor, as you know. But all of this she has done with her $1 million smile and a happy countenance all the time. And you know that the job of chair of finance is not always a happy place, but she is so strong, and that happy countenance shines through every day. And we appreciate that. So many times we need that. Royce, we need that, right? That smile to get us through some of these tough times we have to deal with. Jane, you are a senator's senator. We said that before, but you are the epitome of a senator's senator. You make this body better by being a part of it. You make all of us better by being a part of it and sharing of yourself with us. We all join together in wishing you all the best in your future endeavors and wishing you great enjoyment spending more time with your family and, yes, those precious grandkids. Jane, you're obviously loved by your family, but you're also loved by this family, your Senate colleagues, and we will miss you greatly. Thank you for your sacrifice and your service on behalf of a great and grateful state, the state of Texas. Happy birthday, Jane Nelson.
Senator Menendez, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Huffman, Senator Whitmire, for bringing this resolution forward. So I definitely have not known you on this Senate floor as long as everyone who has spoken, but from the first budget that I had a chance to work with you 6 years ago, you were always a mentor. You were always a leader. And we didn't agree on many things, but you were always direct. You were always honest. And so I was thinking about the type of leader you are, because I think you are a public servant, a leader who leads by example. And so many wonderful things have been said about you, and all true. But I found a quote that I want to read that I believe embodies the type of person that you are and the leadership that you bring. And it says, "The challenge of leadership is to be strong but not rude, to be kind but not weak, to be bold but not a bully, to be thoughtful but not lazy, to be humble but not timid, to be proud but not arrogant, to have humor but without folly." Sir Nelson, you embody every single one of those things. You have your priorities so right. And you know, our voting records are probably diametrically opposed, but that doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, what's important is that we love this state. We want what's best for this state. And I know in your heart, you are a person who loves their family more than anything. Mike, just yesterday, we were having a conversation about the friend group that y'all have been getting together every year for 50 years after you had made a pact. And the children. And I love hearing about your daughter who believes in homeopathic and alternative. You and I need to talk. We got to talk. I think we have some similar. But so I understand and I know and I love your heart. And I think that Texas is a better place. I know Texas is a better place because of people like you who are willing to come here and do what's best, working with anybody on this floor. And so we will miss you, and we will not be, we will be better for your service, but there will be a huge, huge hole because of your departure from this body. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you for always being so honest and direct. And I mean, even the last couple of days, as we've talked about the ARPA funding and the foster care system and the things that we want to do. And the neat thing about you is that you always defer to the members of your committee. You're like, make sure you talk to a member of the committee. Make sure you talk to the committee. It's not about Jane Nelson. And I'll end with this. True leaders know it's not about them. It's about the people they're trying to serve. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Buckingham, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chairwoman Nelson, you were my chair before I was a senator, as I was the public member on Sunset, and you taught me to be early, stay late, until 2 in the morning. Don't ask too many questions and never vote against your chair. So Senator Birdwell, I'm sorry that never quite worked when I was on Sons Under You. But anyway, I just want you to know we love you. Happy birthday. You're amazing. I fought every day in the Senate to be like you. So God bless you and thank you for all you do.
Senator Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Dean Whitmire and Chair Huffman, thank you for offering the resolution. Jane, I have long admired you and respected you from across the rotunda as a member of the House. And when I got the call one day that you wanted me to carry one of your bills, I was excited, I was nervous. I said, really? Jane Nelson wants me to carry one of her bills? House members, you know what that's like. And I took great pride in the work because it was had to do with child abuse, and I know that was a passion of yours, and we got it done. And I want to thank you for being a mentor to me. I still feel like a newbie here, second session, but I know that I'm a better senator because of you. And even when we have been on different sides of an issue, we have found common ground. The day of when I got off the floor from standing here for 15 hours, you were back there and helping me to recuperate. And I appreciated that because, again, while we had different takes on the policy, there's a human side to a lot of what we do, and you always seem to point that out, regardless who it is, male or female, Democrat, Republican, urban, rural. You always go the distance to find that connection. And sometimes I think we need a little more of that in today's climate. So thank you for everything you've done. I don't know why you picked now to leave, especially after the dean got his hearing aids, and now he can hear everything you're saying. And we know the big question is, what are you going to do next? But the bigger question, I think the lieutenant governor alluded to this, who's going to keep the dean in line? Because only you can do that. So you might have some advice for a few of us. Thank you.
Senator Caucus.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for this great resolution. Jane just took a deep breath. I had a unique perspective because I was her counterpart in the Texas House, and I chaired public health. And the first session when I got it was a little bit of a surprise, and so much of a surprise I'd never laid out a bill in public health. And I had a large learning curve, but she reached out and she called me, Senator Zaffirini. Now, that call was a friendship call, but I also learned that Jane was sizing me up a little bit, and that's fair, because after that session, my family fondly began to refer to her as Queen Jane, because I learned that it was very difficult to maybe best a senator. I mean, there's just, they're two different bodies. And I mean, she really schooled me on some bills. But Senator Alvarado, it was a great learning experience. So the next session she calls me and she basically doles up the bills and says, I'm going to carry X, Y, and Z, and you're going to carry X, Y, Z, or A, B, C. And I was like, whew, boy, was there a negotiation there? I think there was. I don't know. And anyway, because one of them was a really hard scope of practice bill. And I really said to her, we need to do something, but, you have more experience and let's work through this. And she taught me so much through that. But when then I came to this body, I do believe that the first senator that called me after I filed for office was Jane Nelson. I'll never forget. I was riding back from Victoria, a trip I take really often. And she was so encouraging. It was an incredible conversation, just outside of Victoria till well past Hallettsville. And I appreciated it a whole bunch. Mr. President, I think one of the greatest honors I have ever had came from you and Jane when you named me to the conference committee on the General Appropriations Act as a freshman here. And Senator Nelson, you and I have a few secrets. And one of them is that I always write you handwritten notes about how to, what are the real glitches in the budget. And part of that was learned from, I watch you and how many notes that you take over and over and over again. Senator Gutierrez, when you were questioning Jane on, I believe it was HB 11, maybe a little too aggressively, and some of us in the Senate floor, we'll get that house out of you. But it was so funny. I was on a text message string with my family. I said, I got to go. I said, one of the senators kind of beating up Senator Nelson. And one of my family members replied, defend the queen. And I replied back and said, she doesn't need defending ever. Because you were always so good at everything that you did and so prepared. But the one thing that I learned from you is true leadership. Senator Nelson always knew where she wanted the boat to go. She knew what marina we were going to end up in, but she didn't necessarily pick the boat slip that we were going to park the boat in. She gave us all that ownership. She let us have that investment along the way with gentle guidance, with questions, with some of those questions were pretty tough. Pretty tough. Why do you want to fund that? What's it going to do for Texas, Senator Mendez? Is this important? And it was often not about your district or my district. It was about what was best for Texas. And all these years I've gotten to serve with you, which is now 21, but most intimately starting in 2009 as chair of public health, there is no one in either body that has been a better mentor, someone who has taught not only me but others more. Everyone on this floor is replaceable. Everyone. We've learned that through history. We have learned that through history. But Jane, you're as close to irreplaceable as they come. Senator Alvarado, you're right. Who's going to keep the dean in place? We might not have all that long to have to do it, but because he's moving potentially on to greater things and being a great leader for Texas. But it is the leadership of senior senators like Senator Nelson who has set the stage for what, having served in the minority party and then in the majority party, having stood on this floor with Bob Bullock over your shoulder saying, Nelson, you're not going to vote against this budget. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. And having the courage to vote no. You are as close to irreplaceable as it comes. Thank you so much, Mike, family. We're going to, I promise you, we have her cell phone and we're not going to let her go far. God bless you and happy, happy birthday, Jane Nelson.
Senator Hall, you're next. We have just a couple of more speakers. Senator Nelson, for you. This is like, what's that show? This Is Your Life, this is in the Senate. Mike is old enough to remember, right?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Chair, what has been said on this floor today is absolutely true. I agree with it, and I'm not going to try to outdo or match folks in talking about what a great leader you've been or what it's been. I'm just going to talk about a couple of incidents that occurred between you and I that I think epitomize who you really are. And one of them was my very first committee hearing, my very first vote. Many of you will remember wherever you were when you had that, but in walks Chair Nelson. I had no idea what she was going to be talking about, and she lays out a bill that was absolutely the opposite of what I thought I was coming here for. And I found myself taking my very first vote against the chair of finance being a no. And I said, God, what are you doing to me? And so I did. She was most gracious about it. That was no big deal. The chewing out came from the chair, Frazier, because I didn't tell him ahead of time that I was going to vote no. And I said, well, I didn't get the memo that I was supposed to do that. But it was the way it was handled, and that I thought was, wow, that's pretty good. And the other was the bill that was nearest and dearest to my heart, has been, still is, and I will still continue to work on it, because I came here knowing that we have a serious threat against our electrical grid system, and I found a compatriot in Senator Nelson in our views of prepping. We had many conversations talking about being a real prepper, and she expressed a true understanding of the threat we have and what I was trying to solve with that. And as one of the few people I could actually have a detailed discussion about it and understanding. And it shows her broad understanding of the things that we're faced with here, because that's about as far from finance as you can get in that. But I appreciate that. I appreciate the way you've handled all of what happened in finance. I think I expressed that the very first session when we got around to the finance bill. I remember the look on your face when I stood up to speak, not knowing what I was going to have to say about it. But it was a time where we moved into really recognizing how to put together a conservative bill, and you did that, and I think you've worked really hard in doing that every session we've been here. It's been an honor to work with you, and what everybody said is we are going to miss you. It will be a hole to fill. I've got to find somebody else to talk about prepping and grid protection with now that you're gone. So God bless you.
Senator Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wasn't going to say anything, but it seems like every one of us owe you kind of your contribution to who we are as a senator. And I'll tell you words that come to mind: consistency. You walk the talk. You have the conviction. But in this day and time when it's hard to determine who's lying and who's not, you kind of get to where you can spot a fraud pretty quick. It's something that I think that's inherent as you become more and more involved in the political circle. You're the real deal. Nobody has to question your passion. Nobody has to question your conviction and your priorities. It's already been said. I'm going to give you a compliment. It won't mean much to you, but just trust me, coming from me, it means everything. In our lives, there's a lot of people that you come across that you're good to know and glad to know. But there's a few, usually less than 5, that you can count on one hand, that kind of kept you on the straight and narrow. And I had an individual that kind of sort of raised me from about 15, 16, 17 on. I attributed him to keep me from having an Orange County jumpsuit with lettering across the back with an ID on the front. But what that person was able to do is not tell me what to do, but put me on a path, as Senator Caucus said. You know where the marina is, you just don't quite know where the slip's going to be. You know, he would let you make those decisions, partly by telling you what consequences to look out there, what may happen. But I think it's the teacher in you. Great teachers don't tell kids what to learn or how to learn in the sense that you're the only option. You let kids explore and you let kids figure it out. So I think from my perspective, what you have been able to do and what you so masterfully did is you let that ownership take place, but you also had the confidence and the trust in the fellow humanity that we all share, whether we can agree or disagree on a certain level of the details, that you got to trust people at some point to do the right thing. And that takes bold leadership to remove themselves from something that they're ultimately responsible for, the byproduct, right? You know at the end of the day it's Jane Nelson's budget or it's Jane Nelson's legislation. But you also had the wisdom and the discernment to know you can't get there on your own. So it's your trust in us, it's trust in people, and it's your confidence and your courage and your convictions that come with that. And then to have a practical approach to allowing us to find our own way through it. And the product is significantly different and better, as was said, counsel of the many minds. So I appreciate that, but from my perspective, if I could tell you that person and what they had an influence on me, you are no different than I think that everybody that's had the privilege to serve with you, because you figured out how to get the best of everybody. And I'm glad that not everybody thinks like Charles Perry. I think it would be a boring world, number one, but we'd be in a world of hurt on a lot of levels. But I'm also think that every senator on the floor are glad that not everybody votes like or thinks like themselves. So you got it. You're going to be missed. You're not irreplaceable for sure. But your legacy, rest assured and sleep confident. When you get out of here, you're going to go, can they manage without me? Rest assured there's enough of Jane Nelson and everybody that you've had contact with outside, lobby, or whoever they may be, that as long as you still have your cell phone around, you won't be that far away. But there is a legacy of intangible that's going to be here for a long time. And we thank you for that. And I personally thank you because you never told me no directly. You'd say, but did you know or did you think about? And you know what? 99% of the time I'd back away and say, you were right. And that's what we need is those honest dialogues. Thank you for being who you are.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Paxton.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Dean in Waiting, for bringing this wonderful resolution. And Madam Chair, thank you. It's, I'm a little bit like something that almost everyone has said over and over. There's been something that I've gone, that's true for me. It's true for me. It's true for me. And, you know, I wish that I had been smart enough and powerful enough to hold my age at 40 for all of eternity like you. And I'm glad we're all going to get to enjoy celebrating that with you. But you know, one of the things, there are a lot of words that have been repeated over and over again. And I've had the opportunity to see them in this chamber, inside this rail, and outside this rail, as a colleague. But I also had the opportunity to watch you from a distance, but a near distance, sort of like Senator Hancock mentioned. As the senator of the neighboring county, where I'm up in Collin County for a long time, and there was a resolution from you hanging in the foyer of a school I taught at, just recognizing their great work. And I walked past that every day, never imagining I would get an opportunity to work with you like this. But I heard the word respect a lot. I heard the word courage. And I heard the word, or versions of the word, mentor and teacher and guide. And I love what Senator Perry was just saying about, you know, what really great teachers do. They don't tell you what to think. And when he said that, I started thinking about in my experience as a teacher. And I think that's really true, because I've always thought what a really good teacher does is they teach you how to think. Not so much what to think, but how to think. And I think everyone in this chamber has expressed their appreciation for that you've helped us in that way. And as much as it's about respect and courage, I think what that really boils down to is the leadership of love. And we talk about love in a lot of different ways. People define it in all kinds of ways. But the best definition I ever saw that really rang true for me is that love seeks the good of the other. whoever the other is. It's like, what is really good for them? And you know, it's a beautiful definition because you don't have to agree with that person. You don't even have to like that person. That's why I think God says, I mean, that's how God loves us. He doesn't agree with everything we choose. He doesn't agree. I wonder how he likes us sometimes. He loves us. And he's always looking out for what's best for us. And that's the leadership. That's the courage. That's the mentorship that I take from you. Thank you for leading with love and showing me what it looks like to put other things to the side and really think about what's the best. What really accomplishes the best. And I look forward to being a good neighbor in the future. Thanks for welcoming me into the Grandparents Club. Been a great mentor with that too. And with much love for you, I say happy birthday.
Senator Hughes, you are next. And then Senator Springer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, way back in 2007, the HHSC had implemented a new system for eligibility for folks who needed help, and a lot of problems with it. And so there was a joint committee set up to give some oversight. A joint committee on the HHSC eligibility system. And as a young backbench member of the House, for some reason, Speaker Craddock made me the House chair, and the Senate chair was, of course, Chair Jane Nelson. Senator Safraini served on that committee. This committee met on the floor of the Texas Senate. That's still a pretty big deal to me. Committee met on the floor of the Texas Senate Joint House Senate Committee, and I was the joint presiding officer with Senator Nelson, whom I'd known her reputation before I got here and as a House member and looked up to, and I was a little bit afraid of her. She was always nice, but dude, Senator Nelson. So got over here for these hearings, and those of you who know her won't be surprised. I was surprised at the time. We're the joint presiding officers. She let me preside over those hearings. She called me Mr. Chairman from the floor of the Senate. I will never forget that. And it would have been so easy for her to take that chair, and I would have not have, I assumed she would take it. The work would have been done more efficiently, quicker, better if she had. But she didn't. She wanted me to learn. So kind, so gentle. One that needed to be corrected from time to time. Senator Caucus, she was so gentle and easy. But what about this? Have you thought about doing it this way? Well, I'll never forget it. I still have pictures from those hearings. That wasn't as a big deal to me. I'll never forget that. And got some good work done policy-wise, was of you and the members. And that was the beginning. Little did I know I would get to come here one day, and you would continue to not tell me what to do, but even when I asked, just to gently, have you thought about this? You might try it this way. Wow, thank you. Again, so many times you could just fix the problem yourself, but you help us. You come alongside, you say, here's what I've learned in doing this. And you don't have to be nice about it, but you always are. And so you have that way of sharing with us your experience. And I shouldn't refer to these things in the past tense because, as everyone has said, you know, we're going to keep calling, keep texting, and keep asking you. We'll continue to do that, but I just can't tell you what a joy it's been for me to get to be here and to get closer and closer to you and learn more and see how you do things and why you do things. I've learned so much, and I have so much to learn. So I'm going to keep on asking for your help and your direction. We just love you. We thank the Lord for you and look forward to what's next, and glad you're not going to be far. Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Springer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Dean and Senator Huffman, for bringing this resolution. And Senator Nelson, it is so tough to say all the things that you've meant to me, and hearing everybody, knowing that you have meant that much to everybody in this place and making us all better. I remember, although it's been only a few months here in the Senate, we spent 8 years being neighbors in Denton County, Cook County, and working on a lot of stuff, and you helped me when I was a House member. So we've had a long relationship. I knew that you and I shared, when I was in the House, we were the only 2 undergraduates of UNT. And so we had our Mean Green pride going and continue to work and help them. There is an opening up there at the Chancellor spot, by the way. But no, and we don't know where the Lord's going to take you, but that would be a beautiful place for an alumnus to know. But the shoes that everybody's talked about filling in here, what they don't know is not only do we have to fill them on this chamber, but I have to try to fill them back in the new Senate District 30 in Frisco and Louisville and Corinth. And to tell you how hard that's going to be to fill, my mother said, wait, Jane Nelson's not going to be my senator, you are? I hope you're as good as she is. And so my mother is making me live up to the standard of Jane Nelson. And so, so it's tough. But the other thing I want to say thank you to, and I've given this speech in town halls all across my district, especially when I go to schools, talk to assemblies, and I try to talk to the ladies and the girls in the room. And I tell them that they have every right to be at the same spot that we are. And you have done that. TFRW and what you've done for women in the state of Texas to show them that they can do it and don't believe that only a man can. And I want to thank you for that. For a father of a daughter, I appreciate it. You setting that standard. And I'm blessed to know that your retreat oasis is just down the street from me with Mike. And Mike, she keeps showing me and taunting me with all these pictures of this fish. And so, I said, hey, I'm going to bring my kayak over, and we're going to hop in there and come fishing one day. And so I look forward to visiting y'all there on the ranch in that. And so, and lastly, I want to say, and I've heard a few people mention, that smile that lights up a room. I don't think of it that way, though. I think it's the smile that lights up Texas. So God bless you on whatever venture you go on the next. It has been an honor to spend just a little bit of time with you on this Senate floor, and I look forward to spending many more months and years together up in Cook County, North Texas, and wherever God takes us. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Blanco.
Madam Chair, thank you so much for your service. I mean, you've got such a distinguished career, and you've accomplished so much. But as a freshman, I wanted to take the opportunity to go over some ARPA fund projects in my district. I'm kidding. It's been a long 10 months in the Texas Senate since I've been here, and it's been, it feels like I've been here many, many years. But, in the spirit of being a teacher, when you come into this chamber and you hear about the people who have served here and the people that you're about to serve with, these are titans. These are very powerful people. And like in kindergarten, I know many of you can't remember kindergarten, but you get these butterflies in your stomach when you come into this chamber. But I'll always remember in kindergarten, Sister Natalie, my teacher, who, when I was very nervous and I was crying because I was very nervous to go into school, but she opened her arms and gave me a big old hug, and I felt so comfortable, and that's exactly what she did in the Texas Senate. And you can't replace that. So I want to thank you for doing that for me, for the countless freshmen, because many people here have been freshmen during your tenure. As a former staffer, you got to respect who you work for. You learn so much from your boss. And I'm sure people are watching on video, former staffers, former committee staffers, the folks that have worked in your office, many may be in the gallery today. that you have mentored, that you have shown them what true public service is. And many of them have gone on to other things and to continue to serve to make our state great, and other careers to improve the lives of others. I know I learned that from my former bosses, as I am very sure that they have learned that from you as well. So thank you for your contribution. I can't add more to everything that has been said, but your kindness. Most of our conversations have been over lunch, maybe a cocktail, but it's been about your family. It's been about life. It's been about some business, but I'll always remember that your humanity and how we get to know you as a person is so important. I think that's so important for this body, and I've learned that from you. So thank you very much, and we'll see you later on tonight at the party.
Members, I know we have some scheduled things for a number of members at 4. We do have a couple of bills and another resolution from Robert Nichols. I think we can hopefully get it done before then. I'll be very brief, keeping that in mind. Senator Perry, so many wonderful things said. Your comment that she will leave a little bit of Jane Nelson in all of us, I think is really, really a compliment to you and gives us a little bit more comfort. I think it also means that we should rotate who sits next to John Whitmire in the next session is something brand new, so you can have a different desk mate there every day, John. Very quickly, I remember coming in as a freshman almost 15 years ago, working on 15 or 16 on Health and Human Services, and we went through the entire session, and you remember that? You did not set any of my bills to be heard, and I was faithful. I was there every hour of every day. Some of those hearings were long. And I went up to you and I said, Madam Chair, I've been here the entire session. You have not set any of my bills. And you said, did you ask? To which I said, I had to ask. I didn't know. And that's a true freshman. I had to ask. I just thought it would happen. And then I remember one day on the floor coming by, and you had a bill on local dealing with billboards and beautifying. And I said, Madam Chair, I'm going to have to knock that bill off local. And you said, if you knock that off local, I'll knock 5 of yours off for every one of mine. And I remember thinking, I don't have 5 bills on local. I only passed 6 that first year. I didn't have any bills. What some of you may not know is that when I was thinking about running for lieutenant governor, I went to Jane in the lounge or in her office, I can't remember where it was, and I suggested that she should think about running and be the first woman lieutenant governor, and I would be glad to support her because I really enjoyed being education chair. And you said, I have a big family, and that would take a lot of time away from family. And I respected that. And now that I have 7 grandkids, or 7th coming in a few weeks, I surely understand that as well. I know for the rest of you, you wish you would have accepted my offer. I totally understand that, and become the lieutenant governor. But as time moved on and our finance chair left, at that time, Tommy Williams announced his retirement before session was over. I called David Dewhurst after the election looked good, and I said, if I'm able to win, I'm going to appoint Jane as the first woman finance chair, so would you help by appointing her as interim chair so she could get started on the work? And he was kind enough to do that, and that's really how that began. And you've been such a great partner. For those of you on finance, you know. Those of you on finance who don't know, but the job of the chair begins in the summer before session. She's here 5 days a week, week after week, burning the midnight oil. It's a massive project, and I have to have someone I can trust in that position. So I'm going to lose my wing woman here for the last 8 years. I'll just finish with this, and this is really for all of you, lift you up a little bit, because there are a lot of critics in the world, both parties, no matter what you do, what you say, when you do it, when you say it. Teddy Roosevelt called this citizenship in a republic. It's become known as the man and the arena, which I've changed for you, of course. He gave the speech on April 23rd, I believe, 1910, in Paris, one of your favorite cities. And he said it's not the critic who counts, not the critic who points out how the strong stumble, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the woman in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, great devotions, who spends herself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if she fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that her place shall never be with those who are cold and timid souls who neither know victory or defeat. You have dared greatly. Members, please rise in honor of this resolution for our friend who we love, Senator Chairwoman Jane Nelson. Senator Nelson, you have the mic if you wish.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. You know, I don't think it took me this long to pass the budget. I am so honored, Senator Huffman, Dean Whitmire, thank you for bringing the resolution forward. And thank you all for your words. There's a Bible verse that says, "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven." And it is time for me to move on and do something else. And you all each will face this decision. And I'm very much at peace. It was my decision. I have loved every minute of being in the Texas Senate. And I would like to, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, address the resolution because there were a couple things that were left out. You know, people ask me what I'm going to do, Senator West, when I finish being a senator. Well, and some have suggested that I write a book, and it really would be kind of fun. Nobody would believe a lot of the things that would go into the book, and of course, Dean Whitmire, you would get a whole chapter, an entire chapter. But there are some things that I would put in a book, and one little thing that I tell often, especially when somebody comes and asks me about running for office or new members that come in, some of you all I counseled, and it actually wasn't my idea. A person who was an elected official when I was running for office, who helped me a lot, said, get out, that's back when we used note cards, remember? And he said, get out a 3x5 note card and write down why you want to be a senator and put it in your desk drawer. And there'll be times during the campaign that you get frustrated or you forget why you really originally wanted to do this. There'll be times when you get elected that you're going to say, why am I doing this? Always remember why you originally wanted to run for office. And that was great advice. And I still have that card, by the way, 30 years later. Actually, I was running for the State Board of Education. That was 87. There's something else that will be in my book. Only I don't know how I would describe it. And we've talked about it. The uniqueness of this body, of the Texas Senate. You can't describe it to other people. You know, the House can't even understand it. You all who have been House members, when you come over here, you get it. There are just 31 of us. You know, we each represent almost 1 million people, right, Senator Huffman? Now, close to 1 million people. And we are down here together. We've been sent here to represent those people. And your district and your district and the districts are all very different. Their needs are different, but we're all Texans. And this body still remembers that. We are all Texans. And, you know, we're so small, there are just 31 of us. And we actually have a leader who actually was a Texas senator. He gets it. Senator Patrick, we can go back into that, Governor Patrick, we can go back in that room, 31 of us, and talk. We've prayed together. People don't know that. Voluntarily. We can go back there and truly share our feelings. Senator Menendez, I disagree with you. You said that we may not agree on things. We agree on most things. Absolutely. We may not agree on how to get there, but I know you, and your values and my values are like this. I hear you talking about that grandbaby, and I know how important family and faith and education and CPS and all those things are to you. We absolutely agree. And there's so few of us that when something happens, Senator Taylor, all of the senators who represented that area that the hurricane hit, I hurt for you. You know, we gathered up people in boats and water and sent them down because we're all Texans. You hurt, I hurt. Senator Blanco, when that shooting took place in El Paso and I went down, remember we went down? My heart bled for those people that you represent who testified before us, because those people are Texans. When you hurt, I hurt. And it's something that binds us together, and it's very unique. And I'm so proud of that. You know, another part of my book, Senator Whitmire, people don't know this. It's true. I actually have very strong faith, and when it just happened that I ran for the Texas Senate, first of all, Senator Zaffirini, do you remember what it was like back then? I mean, well, first of all, I was in the minority party, mostly men who were attorneys. I was a mom and a teacher and totally out of my element. But God has plans. And let me tell you, I was listening to your beautiful words today, and the qualities that you talked about, I'm very proud of, but those are my mom talents, right, Christina? And my teacher talents. And maybe that was God's plan. We didn't need any more, lawyers or men. We needed some moms in this place. One thing that I value about this body is that we each have different traits and talents that we bring, and you stir it all up, and it makes beautiful legislation if you will just let it. And maybe that was the plan. You know, I prayed over whether to be a senator or not. And I said, okay, God, you want me to do this? You got to give me two things. A patient husband. And Mike Nelson, we've been together 50 years now, has never complained about this. Never. He has sewn sequins on dance costumes and been super mom. Am I right? Been so supportive. He invented Lunchables. The kids talk about that. So supportive. But you know what? This is a great model too. Because when women call me and say, I'm thinking about running for office, what do you think? Beverly's going, yeah. I say, what's your husband say about this? If he's supportive, you can do it. He's not, might want to rethink that. And Mike has been supportive every step of the way, and that's how I've been able to do what I do. The other thing I prayed for was a great staff. Now, I've got a note here that says, surprise, your former and current staff are in the gallery. And I'm looking up there, and oh my gosh, are we going to have fun tonight? Throughout my time in the Texas Senate, God has blessed me with the most brilliant, talented, hardworking, dedicated people anybody has ever had. And I could never do, you all know this, our staff is there and helps us and provides so much of the foundation for what we do. And I am so grateful and I'm so proud of where so many of my staff have moved on and ended up. But it's not just my staff, it's your staff. All these people who sit around the rails and who are up here 5 hours every night after we leave. And it's the Patsy and and I shouldn't start naming people. But without all the people we're looking at and all the people that are, Mary and we have so many people in this building that support us and allow us to be the successful Senate that we are. And we could never do it without this wonderful staff that we have, that we all have. I'm so grateful for having had the opportunity. I'm not gone yet, by the way. I still have an important bill to pass before I go. I'm so grateful for having had the opportunity to serve. I'm grateful for having the opportunity to show you that we can work together and get this done. I am, Mike will tell you, perseverant when I've put my mind to something. But I also hope, I like what you said, because it is important to me to listen to everybody. And while I might not agree with you, believe it or not, I don't always agree with Mike, we can talk about this. And for those of you who are new, don't lose that. Always listen and work together. I'm not asking you to always vote the same, but at least listen to each other. Go back in that room together and talk about your families. Talk about what's really important in your lives, because you're all the same. I know each of you, and the things that are important to each of you are common to all of you. And that's what makes this Texas Senate the most special body in this country, I believe, on the planet. And if we ever lose that, we've lost an example for, I want my grandkids to see this. I want them to see that we can still hold common values, differ in how we're going to get there, but work together to make this world better for those grandkids. And if I've done that, I've done my job. So, Governor Patrick, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity that you've given me to show that we can work together and make things happen. And thank you all. This is the greatest Dean Whitmire gift you could ever have given me, is just the words that I've heard. But it's not just something you've given to me, but these people sitting out here and the young people that may be listening, you can do anything. I'm nothing special. I'm a mom and a teacher who's pretty stubborn, pretty determined, pretty hardworking, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to do this. Anybody can do this. I got to hear it while I was alive. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. President. Party on, dude.
Members, the Dean of the Senate moves to reduce all remarks in writing, including Senator Nelson's. Any objection? Hearing none. And members, we will add all names of the resolution. Any objection? Hearing none. Members, we're going to move forward. Some time pressure for some members. Hughes? Just get ready. And Senator Buckingham, you have an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I want to all introduce you to a very special guest who is in our gallery. Jean-Michel, please stand up. You know, one of the best things about our job is we get to meet amazing people doing amazing things. Jean-Michel is from France. He's with the Compagnon, which is an amazing master artisan craftsman's group that built places like Versailles, Notre Dame, and he's going to be bringing these skills to Texas, making it even more beautiful. So everyone help me welcome Jean-Michel to the Texas Senate.
Welcome. Good to have you with us. Yellow Rose of Texas. There you go. Senator Hughes, you're recognized to suspend the regular order of business on the printing rule, Senate Bill 10.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members have moved to suspend the Senate's regular order of business and the printing rule to take up and consider at this time Senate Bill 10. Senate Bill 10 unwinds two changes that were made to Senate Bill 1 in an amendment on the House floor. House Amendment 50 changed the penalty for illegal voting under Section 64012 of the Election Code. It also changed the offense for election fraud. And so that amendment came late in the process, and now that the smoke is cleared, everyone's had a time to look at all the details. And in response to Governor Abbott's call, his amendment to the special session call, this will maintain the status quo for penalties for those offenses before Senate Bill 1 took place. That's all it does. It's nice and clean. And I would move suspension of the Senate's regular order of business and the posting rule. That's my motion.
Senator Menendez, what purpose?
Questions of the author, Mr. President.
Yield?
Of course, I'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sir Hughes, I have just a few questions. And my question first, your bill, my understanding is it relies on knowing the definition of knowingly and intentional. Is that not correct?
Well, so to be clear, this bill would return the law to the status quo the way it was before Senate Bill 1. So there's no changes beyond that. What the law was pretty well settled on these penalties, and this bill, Senate Bill 10, would return us to the status quo before Senate Bill 1 that we passed in the last special session.
Before Senate Bill 1. And the reason that I am very concerned is that I don't know if you're aware, but in the last couple of years, do you know how many individuals have been prosecuted under this election crimes?
Well, I want to say this, and I'll defer to you on I want to be precise. The Amendment 50 made a number of changes, Senate Bill 1, about knowingly, intentionally.
Right.
That's not affected by Senate Bill 10. Senate Bill 10 only goes to those offense levels. That's all Senate Bill 10 is doing, if that's helpful.
And I think the reason my concern is that more than half of the prosecutions have gone after people who are either Latinos or Latinas. And so my belief is that continuing to increase penalties potentially could lead people not to vote out of fear of prosecution or not to work. And so I'm concerned with increasing penalties for people when making a mistake in these election process.
Well, I understand. And to be clear, this returns us to the status quo before Senate Bill 1 from the last special session. So we're not increasing penalties beyond what they are today.
Thank you for taking my questions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Alvarado. Senator Alvarado. What purpose?
To ask a few questions.
Of course, I'll yield.
Okay. I was listening to a couple of things when you were laying out your bill. Can you specify what the enhancements are?
So that was a great question. Thank you. So the law today, before Senate Bill 1 from the last special session takes effect, the law today, the penalty for illegal voting, second-degree felony, and then this, in an amendment on Senate Bill 1, changed that. So Senate Bill 1 has not taken effect yet, right? So this bill, Senate Bill 10, will keep the status quo before Senate Bill 1 that we passed during the last regular session.
Okay.
The last special session.
But is it, is this the one that's going from a Class A misdemeanor to a second-degree felony?
You bet. It's a second-degree felony today, and this will keep it there. That's correct.
It's keeping it there.
It is, because Senate Bill 1 from the last session has not taken effect yet. So as we came into session, it was a second-degree felony. Senate Bill 1, that amendment changed it. This will reverse that change and maintain the status quo that it was before we got here and that it is today, second-degree felony.
Okay, and so why didn't you do this when you did Senate Bill 1? Why are you doing this now?
I beg your pardon?
Why are you doing this now, the bill? Why is it necessary today?
Well, the governor amended the special session call and added this topic, and so the bill was filed after that. This Amendment 50 in Senate Bill 1 during the last special session came up in the House toward the end of the process, and as members of the House and Senate and others were sorting through the bill, noted that amendment and wanted to go back and take another look at it. So it's really about an amendment that was added to Senate Bill 1 toward the very end of the process.
Okay, and so this would take effect when?
So as I read the law, it'll be 90 days from the end of this special session, this extraordinary session.
Okay. Okay, so and your goal or desired outcome is to deter individuals from committing a crime.
Right.
Is that right? Okay.
You bet.
In view of that, have you done any analysis comparing the penalties on similar election crimes in other states?
Well, with this bill, Senate Bill 10, we're just keeping the status quo. So we're just keeping it what it has been and not making the change.
Okay, so you're keeping it the same, but
It's a second-degree felony today, and we're going to keep it the same way.
Okay, I was thinking you were enhancing.
No, Senate Bill 1 would have reduced it, but this is reversing that amendment. So it's second-degree felony today. It was going into the session, and if Senate Bill 10 passes, it'll stay a second-degree felony.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Senator Ossoff, what purpose?
Well, Senator Hughes, he offered a couple of questions.
Of course, I'll yield.
Senator Hughes, as I read Senate Bill 10, you're deleting part of the bill where it talks about the person is convicted of an attempt, in which case the offense is a Class B misdemeanor. Is that not correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And by eliminating that, does that mean that you're taking out the word intent?
No, sir, that's a very good question. The statute already says if you make any effort to do the following things. So the amendment added in the House, which added attempt, it makes the law say if you attempt to make any effort to. So we're leaving the statute in place. It says make any effort to, but we're taking out attempt because it doesn't really fit. It's sort of redundant.
Well, let's talk about that. Do you need intent?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. Where does it say that?
So we'll make any effort. Again, this Senate Bill 10 will return the law to what it is today,
well, I
what it was
understand
before
that.
we got here. So that's all we're doing. This is not a new change. We're returning the law to what it was.
Well, that's what I'm trying to pinpoint.
Okay.
For example, if I make an honest mistake and I don't happen to live in the jurisdiction where the election's taking place, and I vote a provisional ballot, can I be prosecuted?
So that's not affected by this. This is only about the offense level, right? This is only about the offense level. It's just returning the law to what it was before we got here this session.
Well, okay, so at what point do you wish to discuss about intent?
I'm sorry?
At what point do you wish to discuss the issue about intent? I guess you're going to come up with Senate Bill 9?
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, sir. Under this bill, this is only about the offense level. It doesn't go to the elements or anything like that under Senate Bill 10.
Well, it still does the same thing, Senator Hughes, in terms of the way the bill is drafted. Whether it's status quo or going back to the way it was, it still deals with the word intent or knowingly committed an offense, and that's what I'm trying to clarify.
So the law already says if you make an effort to commit these following acts, you have to make an effort. You have to try to do it. That's not being changed. We are changing the offense level back to second-degree felony where it was. The section you're talking about, they had added attempt, and how do you attempt to make an effort to? So this is really cleaning it up and making the offense level what it was before we got here. So it's just returning it to the status quo
before
that one amendment.
Do you intend to bring up Senate Bill 9?
No, sir. No, sir. No, we do not intend to move Senate Bill 9 because Senate Bill 10 takes care of everything.
And one of the reasons that I'm concerned about this is just because
yes, sir.
The way the law is written, if I make the, an honest mistake, and I actually perform the act of voting, and I didn't do it knowingly because I really thought that I was eligible to vote in that jurisdiction, and I did vote in a provisional ballot, and then I turned out to be wrong, I can be prosecuted.
And Senator, you'll recall some of that discussion came from that amendment. I think it was 58 in the House in the last special session. But this is only about the offense level. It doesn't affect the elements of the offense.
No, I understand that. I guess you're not answering my question that I asked, but that's okay. I am more focused on the intent and what the bill does. But thank you for answering my question.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Gutierrez, what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just for a few questions.
Yeah,
of course, I'll yield.
Thank you, Senator. And I apologize for my lack of preparedness here. Someone has just allowed me to borrow their bill folder. I want to go over a couple of things. We passed some legislation, I think, where we reduced the penalty in the second special session, or the first?
Second. Well, it finally passed, meaning went to the governor's desk. It was second special session, the previous one.
Second special session, we passed a bill, and that was the bill that had all of the, what was the Senate Bill?
Senate Bill 1.
1.
Yes, sir.
Where we reduced this particular issue.
Among other things, yes, that's right.
Among other things. Mm-hmm. I believe some people in the House put a statement in, and this was kind of in an effort to look at the Crystal Mason case and said, well, maybe that was we kind of hit pretty hard there. And then there was a gentleman in Houston that just got arrested last year, also an African-American gentleman who wanted to go vote, spent 8 hours voting, and unfortunately he didn't know, and neither you or I are the prosecutors in that case, but then we get into the fact pattern of whether he knew or didn't know, and you're saying that that's not being changed at all, correct?
That's correct. The elements are not affected. This is only about the offense level.
Okay, but Certainly the folks in the House wanted to do something different and reduce the offense level. You're now saying that the governor issued a letter to us yesterday, 48 hours ago, something like that?
Yeah, whatever. I don't recall that. Whatever you say.
Amongst all of his new emergencies that he wants to discuss this. Yes?
I believe that's right. Senate
doesn't
Bill
want to do anything on winterization, doesn't want to do anything on the failure of securitization bill, doesn't want to do anything on the things that are affecting Texas ratepayers this year. Did he send you a letter or to us an emergency? Oh gosh, and I'm sorry, I'm such a novice at this. Tell me what's the word when he said an executive order. Thank you. Did he add to the call anything on winterization? Yes or no?
You know, I haven't seen all of his orders. I know that in Senate Bill 10, we're dealing with election integrity. I don't know about whatever else he's added, and whatever. I'll defer to you. I don't know.
Okay. Is there anything on the call with regard to, fixing the securitization problem?
No, Senate Bill 10 is about the elections.
Okay.
That's
but
all I got.
He didn't say anything about Winter Storm Uri and 700 people dying, and he didn't care about that, did he?
I think he's made it pretty clear he cares about it. I think we all care about that. I know we do, but
well, I know
Senate
we
Bill
did.
10,
I know
Senate Bill 10 is about
that
elections.
this body did. I know that we did something specific to handle ratepayers, and that didn't happen. And I know that the governor's office has not yet issued an executive order or added it to the call. And I digress, and I apologize, Mr. President. I will move on.
I let you go a while.
I will move on.
Please stay on topic. This is not a debatable motion, so please at least stay on topic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now let's talk about this particular call, the addition to the call, where the governor wants us to go out and create a second-degree felony. Is it a first degree or second degree?
Current law, second-degree felony.
Yeah.
We're restoring current law, the way it was when we got here in January, and the way it still is today. We're restoring current law.
If we do what we did in the second special session, it would be a what? If we left it as the way we changed it to.
The amendment in the second special session took it from a second-degree felony to a Class A misdemeanor, yes, Class A misdemeanor, that's correct. That hasn't taken effect, but that was done in the second extraordinary session.
No prosecutors have actually filed cases against any of these people because it is so difficult to prove the intent, the knowledge, the mens rea requirement. Is that not correct?
Oh, there are many prosecutions for illegal voting, if that's what you're asking, but
by the Attorney General.
No one's done it as a Class A because it has not taken effect.
The prosecutions have happened by the Attorney General.
I think there are prosecutions by the AG, by district attorneys, county attorneys, as I understand it.
Well, it's my hope that the people in the African American community and the Hispanic community and people that have communities where people want to vote, really of all colors and creeds, that people that just want to vote and that sometimes make an error, I hope they do not fall prey to their mistakes and end up, because they will know now that Greg Abbott is the one that made this to a second-degree felony yet again.
It's been second-degree felony for a long time. We're just restoring the status quo.
Senator Johnson, what purpose?
A couple of quick questions of the author.
You yield?
Of course, I'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Hughes. We know, and I don't think anyone really has an issue with having a jail sentence for somebody who commits voter fraud. That's a profound betrayal of our country and our values and our state. The law as it exists prior to this has been established. It was second-degree felony. If you're caught for actually doing it, where it was a state jail felony if you're caught attempting to do it, right? Somehow, accidentally, with controlling both chambers, somehow you accidentally lowered the penalty to a misdemeanor. Is that what happened in that bill?
I know that.
How'd that happen?
I know that Senate Bill 10 will restore us.
I'm asking how we got there.
I'm just here to talk about what this bill does. This restores us to the status quo before we got here.
So did you change your mind because you filed Senate Bill? I'm losing track. Was it 7 that we passed? Senate Bill 1? Which special session we're in? The one that passed, the election integrity, voting rights bill that everybody argued about for about 30 hours that you passed, lowered the penalty, right?
Senate Bill 1.
and that was your bill, and you were very involved in every single provision. Have you changed your mind about what you had in there then and what you want to do now?
A lot of us were involved at each step of the process. As you know, there are two houses, and when we get toward the end, amendments get on in one house and not the other. And this is an amendment that got on in the House toward the end. I wasn't over there, but it was done duly under the rules, under the law. Nobody's suggesting anybody cheated or did anything wrong.
Did it appear for the first time in the conference committee report?
It was not. Well, it was not in the conference committee report because as you may recall, we went to conference on amendment, I think it was 58, which was similar to this, but it had to do with an amendment that was
Keynes language, right?
I believe that. I think that was 58. We went to conference over that amendment only, if memory serves. And you may know. You probably know. You tell me.
Well, I'm not really trying to set you up. Let's go back a little bit in time. We're talking about the status quo. You're saying you're restoring it to the status quo. Do you know what the status quo was in 2010 regarding these specific penalties?
I do not. I will
represent to you, and you've always been gracious in taking people's word for it. So take my word for it that in 2010, instead of a second-degree felony and a state jail felony, this same exact set of crimes was, in fact, a state jail felony and a Class A misdemeanor.
Okay.
But the legislature at that time made a decision in 2011 to raise it to where it currently is, a second-degree felony and a state jail felony.
Okay.
Did we see a reduction in voter fraud behavior as a result of having a stiffer penalty from 2010 to today? Or do you know?
I know that since 2005, there have been about 500 prosecutions for voter fraud, but I don't have the specific answer to your question. You may know. I'll defer to you.
I actually don't. But what I'm wondering because you all passed this bill deliberately with great effort and said Class A misdemeanor, and now you're saying, actually, no, we didn't mean that. We want to do an increased penalty. So I'm wondering if you've got any reason for that, and here's why. Somebody who's going to take the risk of committing fraud, for which under this lowered penalty that you all put in there, they could serve a year in jail. Who is going to say, I'll risk a year in jail, but 2 years, forget it. That's not worth voter fraud. Is that what you're thinking, that it's going to dissuade them from committing fraud because you've increased the penalty?
Well, Senator, we have to have these decisions about any crime in the penal code, and there's a range of penalties for a reason. If the people of Texas think this one's important, it is important. And so I think we're doing the right thing by keeping that high level. Because as you say, it's serious. It's a serious crime.
Okay, and what you did the first time around is not adequate.
I beg your pardon?
What you did in special session 2 is not adequate.
Oh, Senate Bill 10 will reverse that amendment from second extraordinary session and put us back to status quo.
There's just not any empirical basis for it. You just feel like it should be a higher penalty.
The status quo is what we're trying to restore here.
Understood. Thank you, Senator Hughes.
Thank you, Senator.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Buckingham, Campbell.
18 ayes, 13 nays. The printing rule has been suspended. Chair now lays out on second reading Senate Bill 10. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 10, relating to increasing the criminal penalty for committing certain offenses related to elections.
You recognize passage to engrossment?
I move passage to engrossment.
Secretary will call the roll when ready.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell.
18 ayes, 13 nays. The bill passed to engrossment. Will hold right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Senator Betancourt, you're recognized to suspend the regular order of business of printing rules on Senate Bill 47.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Move to suspend the regular order of business of the printing rule in Senate Bill 47. Senate Bill 47 is a refined version of Senate Bill 97 from the second special session. As you recall, it establishes a civil administrative review process to identify, remedy election regularities, improve access, security, transparency, and voter confidence with each election cycle. Under current law, election irregularities usually addressed in the case of a rare election contest. That's a judicial review. This civil review allows, for example, incorrect reporting of daily results during early voting, certain polling locations staying open later than others, lack of chain of custody, documentation for live ballots, and more votes than in a precinct. During the committee testimony, we took some testimony. We'll have two amendments. One that will make it, which is applied in the bill to have, when we do an audit recount, that we actually have to do a manual count and not just a machine count.
and also a amendment from Senator Hall about setting up an oversight committee of Senate and House members. Finally, the bill also has a look back to the 2020 elections, where those audits can be done on basically a three-step process, and the results would be reported to the county party chair, speaker, lieutenant governor, and governor. And with that, Mr. President, I move to suspend the regular order of business and the printing rule on Senate Bill 47. Senator West, what purpose?
Question of the author.
Do you yield? Certainly.
Okay, why are we doing this?
We're doing this because...
I mean, seriously, why are we looking at the 2020 election?
Senator West, I've said many times on the floor that there have been major election irregularities in the state, specifically my home county, of having 1,884, let me finish with it and I'll give it back to you, 1,884 more votes than on the voter roster. During committee testimony, we had discussions from the Red River to the Rio Grande of precincts having more votes than registered voters. And I want to point out that all of that interest started before the November election results were done, because the idea of this bill came into my mind in about October 2020, when even the presiding officer asking a question in Harris County about why there's an error in early voting went unanswered.
Okay, so you had a problem in Harris County, and now, was there a problem in Dallas County? Was there a problem in Travis County? Was there a problem in Collin County?
I mean, through testimony, and Senator Hall can speak better to it, that he believes there were problems in Dallas County, and we did have the Travis County Republican Party chair come and testify in the second special session, so I believe he believes there's problems in Travis County.
Okay, so
Collin County, I'll leave to Senator Paxton.
All right, so the reality is that all of these counties, let's see, Biden won most of the counties, save and except Collin County? Or did he win all of those counties? Which one was it?
Of the ones we listed, I believe you're correct.
Okay, now, would you agree with me that the former president has articulated a position nationally that even though the Attorney General of the United States has said this has been the most secure election that he's seen, or words to that effect, even though the nominated Secretary of State during the last legislative session that was not confirmed said that there was no issues concerning voter security or election fraud in the state of Texas, Trump is the only person who's been articulating that, and there's been many states around this country that have put in place legislation similar to what you're articulating today. Is that correct?
Senator, I can say with absolute 100% clarity that the 45th President of the United States has articulated his support for this bill. And it's a rarity for any president in their lifetime to articulate support for bills on a state level. And it would be as noteworthy as the current president, President Biden, articulating a position as well. So yes, President Trump did articulate a position on this bill, and that's what we're discussing today. So I'm going to hold my comments because I know with absolute certainty his position on Senate Bill 47.
Okay, not only Senate Bill 47, but similar bills around the country, correct?
I'm not advised on that. I only know that there's been a statement on this specific bill.
Okay, so if he has articulated support and called on members of legislatures around the country, this is part of a national movement, correct? If indeed he has. And you don't know, but let me assure you, based on what I've read, what I've seen on Fox, that's pretty good.
Pretty good. I have to give you that one.
He has articulated that he's asked legislatures around the country to pass these laws. Okay? Take my word for it. Check out Fox and some of the other stations. Let me ask this. Tell the taxpayers who's going to be responsible for paying for these audits.
Well, when you look at going forward on the audits, it's real simple. The someone sees a problem, they're part of the election process.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm not talking about on a going forward basis. I'm talking about the 2020 audits. Who's going to be responsible for paying for that?
In both cases, the taxpayer will.
Oh, okay. Let's tell the taxpayers today, how much will this, and we're auditing the major urban counties in the state, correct?
Possibly. It all depends on whether or not there is a request and right, because that's how the legislation is written. And then there is a trigger that looks at possibly maximum of about 20%. So to go to your question, we took a...
Okay, well, hold on for a second. I don't want to confuse the issue. Let's make sure we just kind of keep it separate. There's two provisions, separate provisions. There's a 2020 audit requirement in this bill.
Right.
That's automatically triggered by the passage of the legislation, correct?
That's right, but but it's only a 20% randomized audit. So,
okay, I understand.
So, if I could, to try to answer your question, we took testimony from elections official that said a full-blown risk-limiting audit took 50 people 2 weeks. So we can factor down from that on an audit that we're looking at precincts that have more votes than registered voters, or more early vote roster than votes on the early vote roster. But the first level of that is a 20% audit. So that's, and then they can get another 20% if, depending upon what the review committee decides, and then another final full audit.
All right, let me ask the question again. Who pays for this?
Well, I've already answered, Senator. It's taxpayers.
All right, well, that was the first part. How much will it cost at a 20% initial level? You're a numbers man now. Don't tell me you don't know the numbers now, because every time we talk about something, you talk about the numbers. So how much will it cost?
From listening to testimony of that one election official, that would have cost approximately $250,000 for a full 2-week review. If we factored that down, this would be less than $100,000 if we're doing just the initial 20% view.
So you're saying that to do the 20% for all 4 counties is going to...
No, I'm just talking about on a per county basis.
Oh, so it's on a per county basis. Right. Okay. And so you're saying that it's going to cost a minimum of at least $400,000 on a 20% basis?
It could.
It could.
I mean, I can't say it's a minimum. That's your term, not mine. I'm doing an estimate of less than 100. Okay, and that was with the largest county in the state's testimony, that it took 50 people 2 weeks.
All right, so, and who, is that being paid for by the state, or is it having, the counties? Let me finish.
Sure.
Or the counties that have been identified, the taxpayers of those counties, will they have to pay that amount?
Taxpayers of those counties.
But it's being called for by the state, right? Based on the audit of those 4 or 5 counties are being called on by the state, and the local counties end up having to pay for the audits that are being mandated if this particular bill passes by the state. Is that not an unfunded mandate?
Correct. I mean, that's what's going to happen. Okay, but in the spirit of the go forward part of this bill...
Oh, I'm not talking about the go forward.
Well, I would like to talk about that.
Okay, but hold on, that's fine. When you get your opportunity, you can. It's my opportunity now to ask you questions. Okay. And so what you're doing, and you are not in favor, are you, publicly, of unfunded mandates for counties?
That's been something of great debate, because I've had people describe a tax cut as an unfunded mandate. So... right, that's something of great debate at this point.
So the answer to my question is what? You are in favor of it or against unfunded mandates?
I'm in favor of doing the right thing at the right point in time, and I believe this bill will do that.
Is this an unfunded mandate?
If you want to argue that, we can have that discussion. But again, this is to restore the confidence and the trust in our election results.
Okay, let's play with that for a second. And I'm not trying to go on and on, because I know we need to get off the floor. But when you sit up and make statements like that, when you have the Secretary of State of the state of Texas, my friend, say that there were no issues, what are you trying to restore when you have the top election official in the state that says that, Senator Betancourt?
Senator West, I can state with absolute certainty that I believe, and many others do, that there's 1,880 vote up to that differential in Harris County. And drive-through voting, okay, on a 24-hour basis or in early voting. I knew that there was a discrepancy in October because I press released it and we discussed it publicly. It's never been answered. So, and that's why I'm in favor of this bill. That question needs to be answered. It's an important, variation in election results. That's
in one county.
That's a hard error more than the entire amount of people that used the drive-through voting from 10 p.m. to 6 p.m. There you go.
In one county, sir.
We took testimony that there were issues with precincts that voted more than the number of registered voters all across the state.
Okay, but again, the chief, you would agree. Now let me ask this question. And there's a black and white question. All right. Did the chief election administrator during the 2020 election cycle, during her confirmation hearing, said that there was no election issues in the state of Texas?
Senator West, were you there at the hearing? I was not.
So you don't know the answer? Is that what you're saying?
No, I just wasn't at the hearing. I don't want to answer the question. I wasn't at the hearing.
Let me ask you this. Have you heard that? Have you heard that that's what she said?
I have heard versions of that, but I don't know if that's what she said.
What version have you heard?
Some large, a ball of yarn around it. I don't know whether that's exactly what she said at the hearing.
She has been quoted as saying that there were no significant election problems in the state of Texas.
With due respect,
and I may very well be paraphrasing, but in essence, that's what she said. Let me go back to the question that I asked you.
Let me go back. She's not here, and so therefore we can't ask her.
Let me go back and ask you the question. Is this an unfunded mandate?
I believe that this is doing the right thing with the public's money to restore the integrity and the trust in the election system. Now, and I've had people argue that property tax cuts are an unfunded mandate. This is the top-down guidelines from the state.
I'm not talking about property tax. I'm talking about putting this particular mandate on urban counties where Republicans suspect that there may have been issues with the voting, even though the chief election administrator, selected by Republicans, said there wasn't.
Well, I can tell you that this bill applies to all 254 counties.
No, again, see, you want to kind of commingle what we're talking about. I'm talking about the 2020 audit portion of your bill, not the going forward portion.
Well, I'm pretty sure that portion could apply to all 254 counties too.
Does the 2020 audits apply to all 254 counties, sir?
I believe it does. I don't see a list of counties in here that it applies or excludes.
Sir, isn't it a fact that the counties that are being targeted are the counties that we've been talking about?
Senator, I can tell you what's in the bill. It is different than what the risk limiting audits are already underway, but this does not apply to any specific county in the state. There's a process where individual counties can be triggered, but there's no list of counties and there's no limit to them.
Sir, we will respectfully disagree. But you would agree, though, that if any of those counties are selected and they have to turn around and pay for this, that's an unfunded mandate.
I think I would agree that this
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator, as always. Senator Alvarado, for what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. President, to ask a few questions.
You yield. Certainly.
Senator Betancourt, you have a very good reputation of being a penny pincher advocate, looking out for the taxpayers. And in listening to your exchange with Senator West, you were very upfront and transparent in answering that the taxpayers are going to fund this. Are you comfortable giving this burden, this financial burden, to the taxpayers?
Senator Alvarado.
I mean, you're nicknamed the tax man, so.
Senator Alvarado, I want to thank you for the, for what's happening with this bill, but specifically, what I believe we need to do is ask questions and get answers. That's really what the bill does. if you ask questions and get answers, then you are improving everyone's belief in the election integrity of the election system, the voter roll. So when I was voter registrar, I answered every question that came in, because even though it was an expense, as Senator West and I would agree, but right, it was an expense, okay? I felt like it was important as a department head to answer whatever question that came in because transparency required it.
So again, are you comfortable putting this financial burden on the taxpayers? Because, I mean, it's coming from where? I mean, the whole issue of an audit, whether it's the 2020 or moving forward.
Well, I think the unique part of the bill is that we're trying to handle both. We're trying to set up a civil process in the future that allows people to ask questions and get answered, because what gets measured gets fixed. I believe what gets measured gets fixed about the 2020 election cycle too. And in this particular case, we already know there's precincts that have more voters than registered voters. We know there's areas that have more votes than on the voter roster. So yes, I believe that's a worthwhile expenditure, because we need to find answers that the public can believe in and also feed back into the election system so we don't make the same mistake twice.
And why is Section 281.001 just limited to the 2020 election?
Well, first off, you have a records management problem, because you've got records that only go back 22 months, okay? And that really was a recognition of the obvious, because we don't want to attempt to do an audit for records that don't exist.
So, but for former President Trump making this an issue, do you think we would be taking this on?
That is an excellent question, because before President Trump endorsed this bill, we had already brought it up and passed it in the Texas Senate, because we had, as far back as October of 2020, documented major problems of early vote discrepancies in Harris County and other problems in the state. So yes, I can say with absolute certainty that that bill had already passed once, but a recognition of the obvious that President Trump obviously endorsed the concept as well in his letter.
So are you concerned about the burden? I mean, I know Senator West brought this up to some extent, but the burden that this is going to pose on election workers, and are we doing anything to offer some sort of relief, financial relief, and the Secretary of State's office? Well,
on the look back, the Secretary of State is not involved as a primary, reviewer. The go forward, they're going to be in a position of having to determine whether or not each individual request is one that should be made, and then one that they can either do a finding of fact or order an audit at that point in time. But no, I think that given what I've heard in the testimony, what I know to be factual on election irregularities, I think this expense of money is important to restore what we need to in the confidence in the election process in Texas, as well as the voter roll.
Okay, I have just one more question. The list in Section 280.001F, I'll give you a minute to look at that. It includes political actors, but not voters themselves who are participating in and affected by the voting process. You've got, let's see, I think it's a candidate, a county chair.
County chair,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Okay.
Presiding judge, an alternate presiding judge, the head of a specific purpose political committee that supports or opposes a ballot measure.
Right, so my question is, why not include voters?
I think in this particular case, because we're dealing with people on this list that have actual election position or jobs, or has been involved with an advocacy on a special purpose committee would have, I think, not only the standing but the knowledge to be able to ask this request. Remember, in this portion of the bill, we're looking forward to future elections, so they can ask questions about, were there more registered voters in this particular precinct, and importantly, get a response. And they get 20 days for the first response, 10 days for the second response, and then if that is not resolved, they go to the Secretary of State and ask for relief, which could either be in the form of a finding of fact or an audit. So I think that's a good group of people that that see what's actually happening, because when you look at presiding judges of precincts or alternate judges of precincts, they're actually the ones that are doing the work on Election Day. Thank you. Senator Springer, for what purpose?
To ask the author a few questions.
You yield. Certainly.
Thank you, Senator, for addressing this issue. And, wouldn't you agree that the voters, the citizens of Texas, the taxpayers pay for the election?
Absolutely.
And isn't the expectations of all of our citizens that the elections are accurate?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, to say it's an unfunded mandate when the citizens are already, expectation is we're going to have a fair, accurate election.
That's right, Senator.
And so, to the point, where are some of these discrepancies? I mean, and as we passed this bill last session, I'll remind everybody, Wichita County, I represent, over 500 registered voters at one single-family home that was found because somebody was looking for some other issue, and all of a sudden that pops up is where they go, and of which 191 of those registered people voted in the 2020 election.
Now, that's what's called a packed household.
Yeah, that's a packed household. And so these kind of audits would allow items like that to be on. And also in your bill, and this does affect the entire state because it literally says in there, if there are less than 3 early voting locations, then every location is audited. Cook County only has 1 early voting location. That clearly is intended to include Cook County in your legislation that we go through on this.
Correct.
So I appreciate you making sure it does cover the entire state. And, a few other ones that we have. I mean, in Williamson County, there were over 1,300 votes that showed to have not been included in the official results. That's another one of those inaccuracies that we would be able to say, I want this audited to understand why those weren't in there.
Absolutely. And there's examples like that really from the Rio Grande all the way to the Red River.
And in the 2020 election in Dallas County, when they compared the number of ballots cast against the recorded number of people who voted, there were more ballots cast than there were voters.
Right. That's generally a red flag.
Another irregularity. In Goliad County, the county clerk lost the names of approximately 150 voters who voted on the first day of early voting, but then pushed the update button, and those people were lost. Another irregularity that we don't know if it would have affected an election or not.
Right, and the point is that when you have an irregularity, you have to be able to ask a question about it, and you have to be able to get an answer. And looking back on that, yes, it's going to be an expense, but I believe it's an expense the public would want to have an answer for the reason that you've just talked about, because if it's human error that's caused a 1,300 vote discrepancy, then that needs to be known.
And it's clear, 1,300 votes, 150 votes did not change the election results of the presidential race in Texas, but it would change scores and scores of local and state elected officials, potentially, if they were off by that amount. And that's why it's important to be able to audit to this level.
Right, because this is not, obviously, when you have a margin of victory like in the presidential race, what the numbers we're talking about, while significant, thousands here, thousands there, add up to be, potentially, tens of thousands across the state. But we just took some additional testimony that there's about 3.1% of the vote in Harris County could have either ballots without voters or voters without ballots. And all this needs to be reviewed. And I believe that it's a meritorious expense, and I believe the public would want it. We have to have belief that the election system we have leads to a voter roll with integrity and results that we can trust.
And when you speak of that voter roll integrity, and I know in your opening you mentioned it, and it was one of the things that reminded me of a couple of the counties I represented in the House actually have more registered voters than they do have people on the census that are over 18. Those type of things has people questioning, are our elections right, when there's additional ones like that, and being able to be able to audit and look at this. I appreciate you bringing the bill forward.
Well, no, and Senator Springer, because look, with the instantaneous transmission of information now through all our handheld devices, and that just the fact that you brought up that case again, I mean, it is unacceptable, preposterous, unbelievable that you have 500 people registered at a single family home. And that's got to be stamped out, and that's what Senate Bill 47 will do. Hinojosa, what purpose?
Well, Senator Betancourt, yield for a couple of questions.
Certainly.
I just have several questions, Senator Betancourt. The last time you brought up this bill, I asked if you were trying to copy what was happening up in Arizona, Maricopa County, where they did the audit.
You want me to comment, or?
Well, I'm asking you, trying to copy.
Okay. No, because this is not a Arizona-style audit. We're not hiring a third party at higher expense to review what we already have the ability to review for a lower cost. And that's the economic conservative me coming out, but it's not an Arizona-style audit just on that face.
So what does it cost?
What's that?
Senator West asked you that. The reason I ask you this question is because the Arizona audit for one county, Maricopa County, was $6 million.
Okay, well, that was, again, a third-party audit. That's not what this bill does. This bill does an audit of using internal resources, of which the best estimate we had from an elections official was 2 weeks of 50 people doing the largest county in the state. Now, again, factoring that down, I'm coming up with an estimate that this would be, even in these first stages, less than $100,000. But again, these are expenses that I, took on as voter registrar because I would answer every question, even when they were hostile, I would answer them, because you have to tell everyone involved what is really happening, because what gets measured gets fixed.
Well, I'm just going to ask a couple more general questions, because I know that since the last presidential election, it seems like voter fraud, the election was stolen, and as you well know, there were around 60 lawsuits filed by supporters of President Trump in federal court and state court. Some went all the way up to the United States court, the United States Supreme Court. But in none of those lawsuits did they have any evidence of voter fraud. Is that what we're trying to do here?
What we're trying to do here is to establish a pathway in the future that if there's election irregularities, that someone involved in the process can ask the question, get a response from the county clerk, ask it again if they have to, and then have the Secretary of State either do a finding of fact or trigger an audit. And Senator, direct point, I want an answer to the question of why we have 1,884 more votes than we have on the voter roster in Harris County. Senator Springer just laid out a half a dozen other issues around the state. All of these, including 500 plus people with 100 people voting at a single family house. We should be able to ask those questions. What this look back does is allow an audit of that, but it's in 3 steps, because it's an initial, then another 20%, and then if that continues, then it can be a full audit of the full county.
Just because somebody says there was voter fraud doesn't make it so. You need evidence, and the evidence has not been shown to exist to establish voter fraud here in the state of Texas.
The evidence that I have seen, and I know because I started complaining about it in October of 2020, is compelling. because there has been an unexplained discrepancy in Harris County along with these other locations since before the election. Now, President Trump has clearly endorsed this bill, and he has his reasons that he laid out in his letter. The important thing is that all these questions should be and must be answered, in my opinion, because otherwise we won't have an election system that leads to confidence or a voter roll with integrity. There's no fact or supposition of fact. There should be a home anywhere in this state that has 500 registered voters with over 100 people voting. And that bill, the bill we're passing, I hope again, will allow questions to be asked so that can be corrected.
Did you share that information with the senators here? That evidence?
Senator Hinojosa, in committee hearings, I've said everything I've had out, and then obviously there's additional information that's come in on the floor as well.
Did you have evidence to support the comment statements you're making?
I have evidence that I have headed out, Senator Hinojosa, because this 1,884 discrepancy, we have talked about it since, May of this year. We talked about it in May. We talked about it in the end of the regular session. We talked about it in the first special session. We talked about it in the second special session when the bill passed, and we're talking about it now. So that's 4 times, okay? And that is a documented complaint with a response from the Secretary of State. The reason why the bill exists is because the Secretary of State can't do anything at that point. There's no pathway to a civil remedy, and that's what's in Senate Bill 47 to get the question answered, so that is finally that we finally know what was wrong, so it gets measured, gets fixed.
One of my concerns, Senator Betancourt, I don't want Texas to become the laughingstock of the nation like Arizona has in their audit. And one of the things that can happen, I don't want all our counties throughout the state of Texas to get bogged down on audits because of partisanship, whether it's the Democratic Party or Republican Party, filing complaints and just completely damaging our election system.
And Senator, whenever you look at election irregularities, they either stand up under the microscope or they do not. If they stand up, they need to be recognized and fixed so they don't happen in the next election cycle. That's really what this bill is about.
Well, I think it really is going to create a huge mess for our election system here in Texas. We'll get audits throughout the whole state as compared to pinpointing certain areas where there might be actual problems exist. But thank you for answering my question.
Well, thank you for your questions. Senator West, what purpose? Do you yield? One more question? Certainly.
It's a conjunctive question, though.
Yeah, right. That's right. How many and or 4 buts next? Please go ahead, sir.
Therefore, all right. Serious note. If a person, under the first section of the bill, under Section F, if one of those persons asks for an audit, or frankly, asks Secretary of State for an audit because they're not satisfied with the explanation that they've received, who's responsible for paying for the audit?
Again, if the audit is ordered by the Secretary of State, it will be the taxpayers, and specifically the taxpayers of that county.
Okay.
Now, again, the people that can ask it are the candidate, county chair, state chair, presiding judge, alternate judge, head of specific purpose committee. They have to ask Senator West twice, 20 days, 10-day clock, and then the Secretary of State can decide whether or not that there is a valid complaint, B, a finding of fact, or C, order an audit. And I would hope that they would throw out any non-substantive request, if that's where
you're right. Here's the conjunctive part of the question. All right. What standard, or is there a current standard in law that the Secretary of State has to utilize in order to make that type of determination? Or is it subjective on the Secretary's part?
Well, at this point, they're going to have to use their basic understanding of election regularities to be able to answer that question. And I believe that they are well positioned to do that at this point.
Do you not think that if there's not any clear articulation in terms of what standard should be utilized in law, and we're leaving it to the subjectivity of the person who's the Secretary of State, then you invite more, how should I say it, politics in that determination.
And Senator, that's exactly why I'm taking an amendment from Senator Hall, because we had a discussion about that in the last hearing in Senator Hughes's committee, and he has a oversight committee of 5 senators and 5 House members.
Okay, but that still doesn't answer the question about having an objective standard that's utilized by the Secretary of State to make a determination as to whether or not an audit that will ultimately have to be paid for by the taxpayers within the jurisdiction that's being audited. Should there not be some objectivity in that standard?
Well, I think we've laid out a process that has a discussion about election regularities, which can be violations of the law or violations of other parts of the election code.
Okay, so let's for purposes, when someone tries to articulate a standard that the Secretary of State is utilizing, you're saying violations, the Secretary has to, in the bill, observe a violation of an election law, right?
That's one part of it.
That's one part of it. What other?
Well, let's use Senator Springer's again, because it was brought up in testimony. We've got apparently one home with 500 registered voters and over 100 people voting. Now, that's currently not illegal on its face without investigation as to who's voting and why, but that would be an election irregularity that's not 100% against the election code. But I would hope the Secretary of State would have the common sense at that point in time to order an audit or finding a fact. But that's a perfect example of why we're going to have to let the Elections Division have that type of latitude.
Again, sir, I understand having the latitude, but there needs to be some guardrails on what that latitude is. Just like if it's a civil case or a criminal case, we know what the law is as it relates to burden of proof. Okay? But here, what I'm hearing you say, and I don't necessarily disagree with if the Secretary of State sees a violation of election law or even have reasonable cause to suspect it. But there's no real guardrails on what the Secretary of State, as I understand it, would need to look at to make that determination as it relates to ordering an audit that would ultimately be paid for by taxpayers within that county.
Well, remember, we're trying to set up a civil remedy as opposed to an election contest. We're also trying to set up a non-criminal review of election regularity. And I believe that that's the type of latitude they're going to need to do that. And I think with the amendment we take from Senator Hall with the Oversight Committee and the rulemaking authority Secretary of State has, I believe we'll be able to construct good guardrails long term.
Is the Oversight Committee going to be politically balanced?
Excuse me?
Is the Oversight Committee going to be politically balanced, equal Democrats and equal Republicans?
Right now, the current is 5 of 5, and it's least balanced between both the chambers.
The chambers?
Okay.
Don't you think I mean, in order
I
to make
think that to each presiding officer, there will be a good case to make to have a bipartisan group on both.
Well, and that's what I want to talk about. If we're going to make certain this is not overly politicized, don't you think it should be equal Democrats and equal Republicans on this Oversight Committee?
In this case, I'm going to stand with the amendment from Senator Hall.
But you don't want to answer the question?
No, I want to answer the question by saying let's stand with the amendment from Senator Hall at this point, because obviously the bill has another whole house to go, if you pardon the pun.
Well, I mean, it would be instructive of the House if we send a clear signal that we think it should be equal Democrats and Republicans on the Oversight Committee, given what we're talking about in terms of the election audits and things of that nature. You know that that's one of those battlefields that we always go through. And it would seem as though if we're going to bring credibility to this particular process and there's no political motives for what we're doing, then why not have an Oversight Committee? Let me finish. All right,
sure, go ahead.
That has equal Democrats and Republicans on it. If we sent that message from the Senate, then I bet you the House would very much take it into consideration.
Well, I think a whole bunch of people have already heard, but I think that we need to avoid what has been a dramatic politicalization of the Federal Election Committee on appointments by equal parties. And so I will be in favor of Hall's language at this point.
You opened up a whole new can of worms, but I'm not going to go into it about the federalization piece. I would hope that you would consider that, but if not, then it
lead to further
impacts the credibility of this piece of legislation from my perspective.
Well, I would disagree, but I always respect your opinion and your questions.
Thanks, sir.
The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Buckingham, Campbell, Creighton.
18 ayes and 13 nays. The rule is suspended. The printing rule is suspended. Chair lays out in second reading. Senate Bill 47. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 47, relating to processes to address election irregularities.
Following amendment. Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor Amendment number 1 by Betancourt.
Senator Betancourt. Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment came from the testimony yesterday. Secretary of State, Elections Division Head, also recommended that we make it clear that between include and the underlying colon, a manual review of the following. It allows for a manual recount as opposed to a machine recount if necessary. That's acceptable to the author. I move adoption. I thought it might be acceptable to the author. Yeah. The author, any objection? Hearing none. Amendment is adopted. Following amendment. Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor Amendment number 2 by Johnson.
Senator Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Betancourt, this is the amendment that I offered last time we did this, only last time you had less time to look at it. This time you've had considerable time to look at the wisdom of this bill that says if you're just a harassing challenger of these elections, you shouldn't be wasting the people's money. You should post a bond and reimburse the county for the costs of complying with an audit that turns out to be bogus. Just to protect your bill from turning into a weapon of harassment rather than something that is designed to increase the integrity of our election system.
And again, I've had some time to think because I remember this pretty clearly. And where you're amending the bill, it puts it into the request for an explanation. Remember, that's what SB 47 is about. The county or the election official or district would have 20 days to respond to the first inquiry, 10 days to respond to the next. Then it would be taken to the Secretary of State. At that point in time, they could order an audit if they see there's an issue. And I believe it's just, I can't accept the public policy of putting a bond up for people to do that because by that point in time, they've already had 2 or more chances to fix and remedy the problem. Again, the bill is about remedying election irregularities and fixing those problems so they don't continue to plague the system in the future.
Well, what if there isn't a problem?
Then I would hope that Secretary of State, per my last discussion with Senator West, if they had found a frivolous request, they would deny it because that's the intent of the author.
And then the county is out the dough to pay for the frivolous investigation.
Senator, with all due respect, if the Secretary of State orders an audit, it's because there's, in my opinion, there would be some rationality to the election irregularity they see that needs to be further investigated. So with that, I respectfully disagree that having a bond for this process is necessary. So I would move to oppose your floor amendment. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Buckingham, Campbell.
13 ayes, 18 nays. The amendment fails. Following amendment. Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor Amendment number 3 by Hall.
Senator Hall, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Chairman Betancourt, for bringing this bill forward and our discussions about the fact that there's nothing like a big picture window and sunshine to let everybody really know what's going on. And so I appreciate the work you've been doing on this legislation. And while SB 47 goes a long way towards accomplishment. I believe we can make it even better. My amendment would create a joint legislative committee to provide complete legislative oversight of any activities conducted under this bill. This committee would be co-chaired by a senator and a representative and consist of 5 senators and 5 representatives appointed by the lieutenant governor and the speaker to ensure the committee can still function even if one chamber chooses not to act on its appointment. A quorum would be set at 5 members. The Secretary of State and any advisory committee take action under this legislation or to report to the Joint Committee on a quarterly basis or as requested by the committee, allowing for legislative feedback and oversight. I believe this amendment will go a long way to restoring confidence in our elections, and I believe this amendment is acceptable to the author, and I move adoption.
Thank you, Senator Hall, for bringing the amendment. It was based on good testimony. And since we have already pre-debated this amendment, I will just say that I agree, as much as I agree with the sunshine over your shoulder in the chamber. With that, the amendment is acceptable to the author. Move adoption.
Secretary, call the roll. Is there any objection to the amendment? No objection? Amendment is adopted. To recognize passage to engrossment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage and engrossment of Senate Bill 47.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
17 ayes, 14 nays. The bill passed to engrossment. We'll hold there. Chair recognizes the Dean of the Senate for Senator Zafir, the Dean in waiting of the Senate, soon to move her desk in 14 months, for a highly privileged motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate adjourn until 4:46 today.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senate stands adjourned until 4:46.